Oh my God. Season 2, everyone. We're back. I didn't really have an intro this time because I was kind of just like recovering from New Year's everything.
In your defense, this episode needs no introduction.
I'm just gonna be like, I feel like everyone is kind of like used to the format at this point in terms of the introduction format. I'm Dom, Chris, the movie nerd, the usual. This is Talking TV.
And this is the year that will find me a nickname, but it hasn't come yet.
We are still going to do that.
Because today, there's much bigger fish to fry.
Absolutely.
So much so that I have to put pride aside to kind of get some knowledge and learn from some of Dom's curated, handpicked experts.
I reached out into the ether. I got a few people to respond, and they were able to, thank God, come and show us Chris. Because we both know a decent amount about movies, but these guys, we got the MVPs right here. You know?
I have my notepad out. I'm going to take notes. I'm very excited to see what you guys come up with.
We're getting the new year, the new decade off to the right start because we said it before. This was going to be a podcast where you come to learn. I know, school and everything. But, the difference between us and school, we do it the fun way. If that's even a thing. I don't know. From what I heard, schools
learning
are
can
actually
be
getting
fun.
pretty
Get
fun
your head
now.
out of the fucking machine,
That, exactly.
You need to learn.
As we go further into the machine. But anyway, so, introducing the
hold
newest...
on, because before that, the reason we're all here and in a second season is for the people who have listened. We honestly got a decent amount of downloads in season 1, and I know none of my friends listened, so whoever you are, wherever you are, thank you for being here. I just wanted to say Happy New Year since I won't really be too much on this podcast. Thank you guys for joining us. We have a lot planned for this new year. We're looking forward to you being here. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Dom to tell you kind of what this whole episode's all about. And just, remember to, at the end, Dom will tell you there's a very important thing you got to remember as always. And I'll save that for now, but Dom, bring it in, kick us into this podcast.
I made a New Year's resolution. And I don't remember exactly what it was that entailed because there was much stuff that was consumed on New Year's Eve. But I do know that there's one thing that's not going away, and that's my catchphrase, and that is overall just watching movies. So, to my left, Chris is right. We have my number 2 from my days working at the Oswegonian, the greatest goddamn entertainment section that you could ask for on a newspaper ever in Oswego, New York. The one, the only, Brandon Fallett. Brandon, how are you?
What is up? I'm doing great. It's great to be here. Great to talk about the best movies of the decade. Meaning, the greats. I just want to talk about the big stuff. Real Steel, Transformers, Dark of the Moon, The Last Night. That's what I'm here for.
We're already getting this off to a great start. No, but Brandon, so you and I, we had to come up with a decent amount of top 10s in our day back at the Oswego when we were working together, struggling hard in order to get in those deadlines. So you feel like that gives you a lot of experience and legitimacy in order to be here, in order to qualify you to be here?
My entire life has been consumed by top 10s, not just movies and music. Whenever I do the dishes, I'll say, all right, Dad, and I'll lay out 10 dishes, and I'll say, how would you rank these? Top 10 dishes. And he would say, okay, well, we got to start with the porcelains, then we can move on from there.
I'm glad that your dad actually partakes in that, because every time I ask my dad that, I'd usually just get dirty looks.
Yeah, no.
And to my right, we have another guy from Oswego. There's a lot of, deja vu going on around here. He was in the cinema department with me. He helped me out of a lot of stretches, particularly with my final project, and he definitely knows his stuff about movies, even in his aspirations to become the next great stand-up comedian, Mr. Adam Somer. Adam, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I've never done a strictly movie podcast, so it should be interesting.
This is definitely going to be a fun time. There are going to be much shenanigans that are happening. So, guys, in order to kind of break it down, so this is kind of a different kind of an episode, for any new and returning viewers, and also just new viewers in general. So rather than just kind of breaking open a topic and kind of diving into it, so this is the first of a couple of rankings podcasts that we're going to be doing, where we decided to get the big dog out of the way, rip the Band-Aid right off. We're going right into it. We're doing best of the decade. We just finished up 2019, which just finished up a whole decade. It was definitely an interesting decade, to say the least. Before we start, in terms of breaking down what movies we feel qualify as instant classics in terms of what will go down in the bowels of the history of cinema, in terms of actually qualifying for
such a way
future
with the
class.
word. Yeah.
I know, right?
The
So
bowels.
eloquently. What is one thing that I would say you guys took away from last decade overall? I just kind of what it meant for both the world and just the world of cinema in general.
I mean, I definitely think it was a really good decade for movies in general, because you actually got to see people coming back to theaters again. And I think a large part of that is from superhero movies, which I think they're both good and bad for the industry, because it has brought people back to the theaters and wanting to, come back and actually have the experience. So I think it was good to see an actual rise in numbers and ticket sales. So
Yeah, and to see the kind of death and rebirth of independent cinema, I think was the big takeaway. At first, when the decade was starting out, you really didn't have an independent cinema kind of venue that was that important in the Oscars. But now, I mean, geez, it's like you only have independent movies that are getting nominated for Oscars, and there's so many more opportunities now to make content, whether it be for a streaming service or something like that. I mean, it's really the age of streaming services. So I would say that's the most exciting thing about that decade.
Most definitely. And so with that being said, guys, let's jump in. We got the first year, the year that kicked off the decade, 2010. So if I'm getting the math right correctly, Adam, when you and I started this decade, we had just gone into spring of our 7th grade, which Brandon, that would have put you in 5th grade.
Probably.
Yeah, so that's crazy. So 2010, I'm not going to lie, for the year that got the decade kicked off, there were like a decent amount of good movies. I've got a full-on list of at least 10 that I would want to put in, but obviously for the purposes of this podcast and for the purposes
your
of just
top 3 of 2010.
List, yeah, definitely. So I would say roundabout overall, let's start with Adam and then kind of just go around top 3 movies that you would nominate from 2010.
All right, 2010, I have, not many people have probably seen it, Beyond the Black Rainbow, kind of experimental, really good, Inception, and then Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Who directed Beyond the Black Rainbow?
His name is
Michael Bay.
Panos Cosmatos.
Oh, that's Panos Cosmatos, the director of one of our professor's favorite movies from 2018, Mandy.
He did Mandy as well.
That's
all right,
terrific.
Definitely. Yeah. All right, that's definitely an interesting choice. I have not seen any of Panos Cosmatos' movies, but it's
wild.
It's another Greek director like Yorgos Lanthimos. He's just got that name that you just want to say over and over again. I don't know. It's just one of those fascinating, like Karen Kusama, just like one of those, right? Or John Cassavetes. That's not a Greek name, but I just want to say that name over and over again. It just rolls off the tongue so well. All right, then going over to Brandon. Brandon, what would your 3 movies be that you would nominate from 2010?
I would say the 3 seminal movies from the year. The Social Network, Inception, and Toy Story 3.
Yeah, that's kind of along the same
2
lines.
Inception on the top 3.
2 Inception. So I think it's safe to say which one is making it. So I actually have a funny relationship with Inception, but what's it called? I actually have a funny relationship with Inception because it's a whole thing of where I didn't like it necessarily the first time that I watched it. But then I went back and rewatched it again, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was good, but it's still, I don't know what it is. It's I get what it did for the world of film when it came out. I just think that it was just a moment that I think I missed it, and therefore the effect I feel was lost on me. Because there is a lot to be said about catching a movie in the moment of its release.
Absolutely.
And also just in terms of Christopher Nolan movies, obviously it's not even close to being my favorite. I think it comes in 5 or 6. I like all the Dark Knight movies, Interstellar, The Prestige, and what's it called?
Dunkirk?
No, I am surprisingly enough, Dunkirk is actually my least favorite of Nolan's movies. But yeah, I don't know. It was just maybe the effect was lost on me. But the other 2 I will give you, definitely Social Network and Toy Story 3. But I'm gonna lobby in a little bit more of a personal choice. This is a choice that not a lot of people would think of. So 2 of my choices you actually got. Toy Story 3 and The Social Network are my 2 choices.
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome. But I'm also gonna lobby in The Fighter because I think that that's a movie that it definitely gets overshadowed because I feel like the boxing genre, I feel like outside of Rocky, it doesn't necessarily, not overplayed, but I would say it kind of repetitive. It's not necessarily a genre that gets
typical.
to revisit.
So it's overplayed.
It doesn't get to it doesn't get to present a lot of new themes, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But I think that with this movie, it kind of kickstarted this trend of what I like about a lot of sports movies that I saw this decade, which is getting back to me what always made sports movies good, which was the interpersonal drama, because usually there was some sort of familial struggle that was involved. In this case, you saw the relationship between Mark Wahlberg's Mickey and his half brother, stepbrother, whichever the relationship was. Christian Bale's Dickie Eklund, for me at least, my favorite Christian Bale performance personally. But yeah, so that's going to be the one that I'm gonna peg for.
Yeah.
So your 3 would be
Social Network, The Fighter, and Toy Story 3. Yeah, I mean, The Social Network, it's what
and
what
you
can
have
not
the
say
Social
about
Network
that?
on yours.
Yeah, mine are Social Network, Toy Story 3, and then I'm with you with Inception.
Yeah.
I think Inception's fantastic.
So we have 2 for Inception. We have 2 for Social Network.
So I think it's safe
narrow
to
it
say,
down for those.
I think it's safe to
And
say
then
that Social
Toy Story
Network
3.
and Inception are there. So and then do we just
I
want
would
to
have done Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Yeah,
'cause
Scott
that
Pilgrim
movie,
came very close.
Not just
That one came
it's
very close for
underrated,
me.
it's just terrific.
It's
masterful.
it's my favorite
It's
Edgar
a
Wright
comedy
movie.
film that is masterfully told.
But it's not just that. It's the fact of it's using all of those I feel quick cut editing techniques, but it's using them the movie has such a strong sense of identity that I feel I'm not gonna say it's missing because I feel like all of Edgar Wright's films have this, but I feel like it stands out above the rest. I would feel
It's
like.
by far his best film.
Yeah.
Because it has such a sure idea of what
the visual flair, the sense of tonality, the comedic chops. It's like the sense of comedy. It's like there's that joke per minute kind of thing. But the thing that I love about all of Edgar Wright's movies is they all have that sense, because Edgar Wright, I think the whole thing that he says is he writes his screenplays to music, and kind of in every single one of his screenplays you can sense this like undergoing like dynamic pentameter to everyone. Like that's the whole thing with Baby Driver, to the point where he literally makes a soundtrack the entire backdrop to that movie. So I feel like in that sense, like Scott Pilgrim,
It's an honorable mention.
It's definitely an honorable mention.
Yeah,
but so those are the three that we're going to
Definitely
go with
worthy to
most
bring
definitely in
up.
terms of seminal defining that year. We're going to go with Social Network, Inception, and Toy Story 3 from 2010.
We're picking all three.
So
we don't want to cut one loose now. Do we think all three have a shot in making the top 10? Personally,
I think we can cut out Toy Story.
I think it's safe to cut out Toy Story 3
Yeah,
now,
I mean,
because just in terms of, like,
I honestly think Toy Story 3 is my personal favorite animated film of all time.
Toy Story
I think
3
it is
comes-
absolutely terrific.
Toy Story 3 comes close, but to me, I can think of at least two other animated movies for if there are going to be, and if there is
the
going to be an
best
animated
of it.
movie that makes the top 10, the overall list. What's it called? It'll definitely be like one of these other two that we'll get to later on down the list, because one of them was mid of the decade, one of them was just last year. But so we'll get to them. Like, don't get me wrong, Toy Story 3 comes very close, but if I had to pick between that and these other two movies that we're gonna get to, it would definitely be like between those other two.
So the structure is we're gonna just talk about the nominees right now,
Yep.
and then by the end of it, we go 2010. We got to pick in that moment.
Pretty much.
2011.
And I'll be
2012.
honest, I'm fine with cutting Toy Story 3 because it is a sequel, and it would be kind of weird saying like best
it's
movies of the
already
decade
tricky.
is
It's already tricky
that
to get into
third
sequels.
entry in
Yeah.
that series.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, okay. So then 2011.
2011, so getting ahead. So now we're getting into it. So that to me was
The worst year of the decade. Can I say it's the
I don't
worst
think it's
year of
okay.
this
Well,
decade?
we should start by establishing some boundaries. I don't want to say that anything is the worst of the year, because I think that every year, at the very least, if it's doing a job, with the exception of a few, has something to contribute overall. Like every year to me has a unique identity in and of itself. What I will say is that 2011 is kind of in its own weird spot where it didn't really have an identity, because it wasn't quite dominated. Because don't get me wrong, there were a decent amount of blockbusters, but you look back and it's almost kind of like you forget the amount of blockbusters. Like that was the year that gave us the last Harry Potter movie, the first of the Apes trilogy, the fourth Mission Impossible movie, the fifth Fast and Furious movie, all these
It was a
movies that a lot
franchise
of people
year.
talk
Yeah.
about. But I don't know, for some reason you kind of never talk about the year that they came out in 2011, as opposed to the independent cinema, which you look back and I feel like all the indie movies that came out in 2011, if they came out like this year or last year, they would have gotten like rave reviews. But because they came out in 2011, I feel like they were kind of, if you weren't kind of like in the circle and in the moment, I feel like a lot of them got
the
missed.
scene wasn't as popular there
Definitely.
because there wasn't as many venues to see those
Right,
films.
it was a whole different landscape just at the beginning of the decade. And that just shows you like what happens
then
over 10 years.
What are your top three?
So if I had to pick three overall, just based off of what I've seen, because I will admit 2011 is probably the year, unfortunately, that I have seen the least amount, because I think in terms of the movies that I need to catch up on from that year, is the longest. But my three movies that I would nominate from that year are, I think this is an obvious no-brainer, Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive, Warrior, and Young Adult. Those would be the three that I would nominate. Jason Reitman's Young Adult.
All right.
Yeah, this
Brandon?
is the second thing. This is the second year in a row that I'm two with him.
Yeah.
I would definitely put Drive in there. Definitely put Warrior in there. And then my third pick, I don't know, just to like throw it in there would be The Help. But that's just to throw it in there. I don't think it's, I think it's terrific.
It's an honorable mention.
I just
of
want to
the-
mention it, but it is such a damn good movie.
Yeah. And it's funny because I actually haven't watched The Help at all. So, like, is there anything that you would, like, go into in terms of, like, prefacing, like, what it is that makes that movie, like, one of the, like, quintessential viewing movies of 2011?
Absolutely. Sorry,
I think-
I'm laughing.
No, you're good. You're all
So
good.
I also have one in common. I've got Drive. I've got Tree of Life, and then I have The Artist, which
Ooh,
actually
Terrence
won-
Malick. Yeah, you actually have the
think you're
famed
better than
Best
us
Picture
because you
winner.
picked the
I
higher
actually
good
deserve
ones.
Best Picture.
I actually agree with that. I think it's a really underrated, like lesser known, that like not many people saw.
It was a good film.
Yeah, and I really enjoy it. So those are my three: Artist, Tree of Life, and Drive.
Well, we're all in agreement on
So I think we're
Drive.
all in agreement on Drive. Definitely a very special film. I'm just really disappointed that Winding Refn was unfortunately never really able to follow that up. I mean, Adam, you talked about
Now-
Only God Forgives, and I tried watching 2 episodes of Too Old to Die Young this year, but oh man, that was a stretch. But
Are there any other movies from 2011 that we think have a shot? Like a good, because I love Warrior. I don't know if it has a shot in making
Captain
Best of the
America.
Decade.
Captain America: The First Avenger, Transformers: Dark Knight. No,
I think
would
it's
say,
a great. It could be its own own standalone.
The first Captain America is terrific. It's one of the most. It is the most underrated.
Definitely
MCU.
the most underrated MCU. No, my thing. I think the only movie that I would think of that would maybe have a shot is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
I never saw
that I keep going, but I never watched that one. That's the problem. So, like I said, 2011, I'm severely lacking. Although I will put out the praises for Young Adult because I think that Young Adult is definitely one of the more kind of underrated because I feel like because Jason Reitman had that win from 2006 to 2009 between Thank You for Smoking, Juno, and Up in the Air. And then kind of when Young Adult hit in 2011, it kind of flew under the radar. But let me tell you something, like Charlize Theron, kind of the beginning of his collaboration with her, and just like what he says about like kind of like, I feel like that was a movie that was talking about gender and societal norms about women before it was like popular, I guess, in order to talk about gender and societal norms for women. And just in terms of that sense, kind of like somebody who like left town, kind of became a rock star and is kind of like living in like the after show of, kind of the hangover phase of her fame and kind of comes back in order to see what the life she could have had was like, kind of reconnects with some old people from high school. And it does some things that you would expect. It does some things that you wouldn't expect. I definitely think incredible supporting turns for both Patton Oswalt, who to me delivers an Oscar-worthy performance in that year. It helps largely that he's incorporating a lot of elements of himself into that movie. But yeah, just really great movie. Just wanted to give it a shout out.
Not for Ratatouille?
No, unfortunately not for Ratatouille. No, unfortunately, see, for me, well, that we got to talk about at a different point when I talk about how I feel like the Oscars have just been completely unfair to voiceover artists in general. But
and stuntmen. They don't even have a category.
Voiceover artists, stuntmen, casting directors are the three people that I feel like have been consistently fucked over by the Oscars.
Casting directors, I don't. Do you think really an Oscar?
Best accountant.
Yeah, are you the best at finding good actors?
Hey, are you kidding me? If we're talking about like how this stuff really works, accountants do a hell of a lot more than we give them credit. That the art world gives them credit.
If there was an Oscar for casting director, I would have 17 by now. Anyone can pick out who they want. It's like the Yankees; they just buy the best team.
A lot of the times it's the director who comes up with that.
But so anyway, so 2011, yeah, we can all agree it's like Drive.
I'll say
the movie
Drive
from that year. Yeah,
I mean overall, that year was great for blockbusters. It kickstarted a lot of great blockbuster franchises.
Most definitely.
First Thor, first Captain America, X-Men First Class.
Oh, let's not forget Green Lantern, which effectively kickstarted
Deadpool.
Swerve the DCEU.
I mean, that kickstarted Deadpool.
Most definitely, it led to one of the best jokes in the last Deadpool movie.
But overall, in terms of quality cinema that will be remembered, other than Drive, which I don't even think has that good of a shot at making the top 10 of the decade list.
I don't know. I'll definitely like put like a few pegs behind it, just in terms of like what it is. I think Drive's biggest hindrance that it had at the time was that people at the time weren't quite ready for that kind of a movie, so they weren't really sure what it is to make of it. Because the whole thing of that movie was marketed like an action movie, but it's so much more of a somber character study than anything else.
It is really graphic, and I think his character study is really interesting, but also it's got a stellar cast just besides Ryan Gosling.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's got Oscar Isaac.
Before he became
Oscar Isaac.
It's got Ron Perlman. It's got Bryan Cranston. It's got
Albert
Christina
Brooks.
Hendricks. I was about to say the MVP of that movie, Albert goddamn Brooks. Holy shit.
It is by far the needle in a haystack of that year.
Most definitely.
All right, so then
2012.
So moving on to 2012. All right, the year that the world was supposed to end and didn't. And it's like one of the most disappointing things. I remember that was like literally one of the most tense New Year's Eves ever. And then I woke up the next morning, I'm like, wow, what a bunch of bull. Screw you Mayans with trying to fool you with your bullshit calendar.
It was supposed to end on the 21st though. So
that's right. Yeah. That's what I was trying to go for.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Whenever I think of 2012, I think of that was the year Avengers and Dark Knight Rises came out.
Definitely a very marked superhero summer. That was end of my freshman year of high school.
Those two movies coming out the same year. It was like Christmas. It was like, wait, you're telling me I'm
literal
getting
Christmas in July?
Things?
Yeah, it was insane. No, and like say what we will about Avengers and how that kickstarted the whole Marvel wave and Disney and what it's happening to the industry right now. But at the very least, you cannot deny the effect that first Avengers movie had when that movie hit. Yeah. Oh my God.
And that leads me into my nominations. I will nominate The Avengers, Silver Linings Playbook, and The Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Yes. Oh my God.
Three defining 2012 films. Honorable mentions, I just want to say Les Miserables is great. I don't know why the critics hate Russell Crowe singing and all that kind of stuff. It is a great film, but I'm not nominating it.
Yeah, what's it called? 2012, I feel like is definitely, without a doubt, one of the 2 years that we're gonna have the most difficulty with, because there's a lot of freaking movies. I mean, you want to go Project X, Chronicles, Zero Dark 30, Paranorman, Moonrise Kingdom, Seven Psychopaths. The list goes on and on.
Even little ones, Pitch Perfect is great. It's a great
I still
comedy.
haven't seen the first Pitch Perfect.
It's great. It's like
and
such
I
a great
feel like
comedy.
it got completely marred down by the sequels, unfortunately. But so if we're going for my 3, don't get me wrong, this is a really, really freaking tough year. But if I had to pick my seminal 3, so we do have one in common. We do have Silver Linings Playbook in common. Perks, I came so close. I came so close to putting Perks, and I just recently watched that. That movie had so many effects on me, just as like, first off, the freaking guy who wrote the goddamn book, adapting his own movie, and adapting his own source material.
Love to see it.
Having it be still as deep and disturbing, but also like as what's the word I'm looking for? Just as enveloping. I feel like as it would be. Like I feel like I'm reading the novels of a book. Also, and unfortunately, I hate to say this, but Emma Watson's peak, because unfortunately Emma Watson had Bling Ring right after that, and then she was not able to touch that. But Emma Watson as the manic pixie dream
She's
girl.
got Little Women this year.
She does have Little Women, but I have heard that she's the weakest part of that movie.
Good to know.
They
Unfortunately,
probably underuse her.
Probably.
She has like what, 4 sisters?
Well, because the whole thing is that I feel like she's been
ensemble,
underused.
yeah.
She's kind of been like underused and everything since Harry Potter, because I feel like the studios are like, again, she got stuck in that trap of, oh, she's Hermione, what else are we gonna put her in, you know? And so we've just put her for her Hermione-esque roles. But so I will my other 2 choices though for that year will be the first gift that Quentin Tarantino gave us this decade of the 3 movies that he gifted us with this decade. Django fucking Unchained. Love that movie. I get it. It's probably not the most historically accurate, and Tarantino was probably a little bit too liberal with the N-word in that movie, but motherfucker, in terms of that being like one of the best escapist fantasy. Also, how about the fact of everyone talks about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood being 3 hours long? Django Unchained is 2 hours and 45 minutes, and it feels like an hour and a half.
It's 45 minutes too long.
Oh, you think that last act is just too unnecessary? You're one of the red letter media crowd that thinks it's
drags.
I love it.
So
I love it.
much.
I think every minute of that is it's so entertaining that I just can never turn my eyes away from the minute that Tarantino sets off his own bomb, blows himself up because of how bad his accent is that he's doing, right until the end when he's making the goddamn horse dance is like, oh, it's pure cinema. And then my third choice is, to me at least, like I said, those 2, Silver Linings and Django Unchained, are very, very tough and up there. But for me, it's Cabin in the Woods as the defining
It's a fun movie
for me.
It's a fun movie.
No, but we'll get into it. And Adam, you know why I picked that choice.
So I actually have 2 the same as Brandon. I've got Avengers. I've got Perks of Being a Wallflower. And then my third is The Master. But for the casual moviegoer, I feel like no one saw it at all.
Yeah, definitely. Not one of Paul Thomas Anderson's more talked about movies.
Yeah.
But I
Paul
hear
Thomas
it's
Anderson even hasn't talked about movies.
masterclass.
I was about to say one of the other options for this
did
decade,
there.
Inherent Vice and Phantom Thread. Yeah, everyone saw that.
Yeah.
Those 2.
But I'm definitely gonna put Perks of Being a Wallflower and Avengers up there along with The Master, but obviously they're gonna be narrowed down.
I mean, it's interesting with the Avengers because that is a comic book movie, and you know when we're talking about like essential best films of the decade, you know you might not be enticed to choose one of those, but I honestly think it's a fantastic, fun summer movie that sets up the characters great. It pays off great. That movie was not supposed to be as good as it was,
Definitely,
and because of that, we got Infinity War and Endgame and Civil War and Black Panther and all that stuff.
It's really tricky when you talk about kind of the movie that represents the MCU as a whole, because I feel like it's the first Avengers is tough, but I feel like it's always between the first Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame, and it's like which of those 3 you have to pick. So
just skip over Age of Ultron.
So yeah, we'll just. I like Age of Ultron.
If you take Age of Ultron out, it's a perfect trilogy.
I like Age of Ultron a lot. I think that movie gets a lot of unnecessary flack, but I definitely think that is kind of like it's both simultaneously the high point and the weak point, because it's like because you know why I feel like it was, even though it was 3 years after the first Avengers, everyone was expecting the same thing for the first Avengers, and they got it in a way. It's just I feel like everything that movie delivered on is not what people were focusing on.
No, Age
So
of
overall,
Ultron was
so this is actually like a tough year. So I've got Avengers, Silver Linings, Cabin in the Woods, Perks of Being a Wallflower. I feel like what overall would we say, like if we had to chop one? I feel like Django was the one that we'd chop.
Yeah, let's chop.
I would
Django.
chop Django, and I personally would chop Cabin in the Woods because
Really?
I love it. I think it's a fun movie. It plays off the tropes of the horror genre, and I think that was needed at that time because it allowed for a rebirth of the horror genre
Yes.
later years.
Yeah,
like
thank God that
Hereditary,
this horror
all
renaissance
that
we've
kind
been
of stuff.
experiencing.
I feel like some of these also need to have a sense of memorability to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Of people remembering them and be like, oh yeah, I remember when that came out. I remember the craze about it. I remember. But then there's also the lighter stuff where maybe not as many people saw it, and then they did later on.
And they got a cult following later on.
Right,
And I feel like
right.
that to me is what gets Cabin in the Woods through, because I feel like in terms of it being groundbreaking, you're right in terms of exposing all the horror tropes and cliches, but I just feel like in terms of, you're right, it is what was needed, but I feel like just, for me, it accomplished, I feel like what a lot of other things. I feel like it accomplished. So I'm actually going to get a little controversial here. I don't think that Scream is the great horror subversive piece that everyone thinks it is. And I feel like Cabin in the Woods is what Scream was trying to be. And that to me is what marks Cabin in the Woods as being like not only the best, because you're right, but if we are talking about memorabilia, I feel like if we don't get Cabin in the Woods, we don't get Out. We don't get Split. We don't get Hereditary.
I don't think Jordan Peele watched Cabin in the Woods.
Obviously,
I disagree.
well, no, I'm not talking about.
I'm gonna make my.
I'm not talking about how it influenced each individual artist.
Like, I got it.
I'm talking about like its overall effect, just on like the types of risks that producers would take in terms of giving these.
But Cabin in the Woods didn't make money. It wasn't a hit. I mean, it became one afterwards. It developed a cult.
I know, but are we defining like every movie by its box office potential?
No.
Is that how we're going by?
No. I think it also has to do with the fact that like even after the fact, it didn't make the money. You know, like even though it had a following, it wasn't making money. You know, it's like.
Right, I guess, but how? I guess my argument. I
heard memorabilia.
I guess I'm going the.
I would not say Cabin in the Woods has that.
See, that's where I disagree. I think that just because it doesn't like necessarily have like that one fandom thing that people can latch onto, I just feel like just breaking up the formula, like it's a funny movie, it's an introspective movie, and I just feel like if you think about it, it's such a nihilistic, messed up movie. Like in terms of like giving. Like that action spectacle set piece, but also like what's so subversive about it is that it gets you into the tropes, but like actually like exposes them as characters and makes them interesting. I don't know. I feel like it's a lot more influential than people are giving it credit for.
We'll keep Cabin in the Woods for now, but I don't think it's gonna make.
I ultimately think it's.
So I'll say that Avengers, and then which ones are
Perks of Being a Wallflower, and Silver Linings Playbook is what else
we're gonna keep all those.
What's it called? I mean, it'll just be a matter of like which ones hit the chopping block once we get to it.
Okay, fine. We'll keep them for now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So going on to 2013.
Moving on to 2013, an interesting year because. It's funny because this I feel like is the year where I don't know why, but I remember from this year all of the big Oscar movies I feel like just flew under the radar. And like I didn't hear about them until like TV ads before, like, because this was the first year that I actually watched the Oscar ceremony. I remember that being the first time where I'm like, okay, I want to learn more. I want to know about what all of these movies are because these all seem interesting because that was the first year, because following up the gangbusters year that 2012 was in terms of like having blockbusters that felt like the greatest gift to God, 2013 just felt like such a letdown. Because I feel like every single blockbuster, I feel like this is the only blockbusters that I remember seeing in theaters I actively enjoyed. Fast and Furious 6, Star Trek Into Darkness, and the first 2/3 of Man of Steel. And everything else to me that year was just a flat, big fat disappointment.
I will say, though, in terms of blockbusters, 2013 was a shit show.
2013 is very disappointing when it comes to blockbusters. Because the thing is, I missed Pacific Rim. And I feel like if I'd seen Pacific Rim in theaters, that would have made a big difference. But
because going into 2013, there was so, like, Man of Steel was so highly anticipated.
Yes. Yeah.
Iron Man 3 looked amazing. Star Trek Into Darkness is, oh my God. And then, I'll be honest, after that year with, like, Elysium and The Wolverine and Pacific Rim, in World War Z, like the only blockbuster that I like enjoyed was The Lone Ranger. I swear to God.
And that's not even a good movie, just from like an entertainment
compared to the other ones. Like, this is fun at least. I don't know.
So then what would be your 3 from 2013?
So my 3 that I would pick, so again, like I said, a lot of movies that I saw after the fact, but once I saw them, I'm like, okay, I definitely understand why these movies are freaking like amazing and like regarded, like definitely should be regarded as the best of the decade. But for me, I'm going, and again, there are 3 easy choices, I feel like, but I feel like they're the most obvious for ones for me. Wolf of Wall Street, Her, and Prisoners. For me, no question, those 3. Like, just in terms of like the best of the year, the best of the decade. Her, I feel like is a movie that does not get talked about enough. I feel like that was one.
It's beautiful.
That they cut from the chopping block way too quick. In terms of like just overall, kind of like almost as a precursor for a movie that I definitely feel like is going to show up later on, like kind of already getting into this idea of what artificial intelligence can do, but also I feel like just you can appreciate it either way because it's interesting because it both walks the line of where you both empathize and don't empathize with him. Because on the one hand, he is a lonely man who wants to distance himself from society to the point where he is, willing to develop romantic feelings for an artificial intelligence.
My dad does not like that movie.
Oh, I'm sure he doesn't.
I'm
sure he doesn't because he's probably on that one side. But on the other side,
no, he's just straight up like, it's fucking stupid. Guy falls in love with his phone. Guy falls in love with his phone.
It's the easy marketing
It's
tactic
one of those
movie.
movies like Shape of Water that got reduced to its kind of
to its tagline,
meme
basically.
tagline.
To
Like
its
the
meme
girl that
tagline,
fucks
and
a
it's
fish,
so much
the
more
guy
than
that fucks his phone.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's so much more. If you've ever been if you've ever felt lonely, like you can empathize with that movie.
Seriously.
Like
And-
to a great
Exactly.
degree.
And on the other hand, like you can actually feel happy for it because it's like, yeah, this guy like doesn't fit into
He's not
society.
hurting anybody.
He's not hurting anybody. Why can't you just let him enjoy
No,
his time?
I love that movie. It
Yeah.
makes me cry.
Yeah, that movie is honestly like terrific. And like even though I've loved a majority of the Joaquin Phoenix performances that we've gotten this decade, that honestly might be my favorite from him. Because even with The Master, I feel like that's one where it's like it's almost a little bit too showy, but that to me was the one movie this decade where it was like
was
he
subtle.
was so subtle and restrained and it felt like I was watching a normal guy. Like
He never had a big scene where he was like bawling his eyes
Exactly.
out.
I
Yeah.
love Joaquin and I love every performance that he's given, but every single thing, it almost kind of goes into the sense of like, wow, look at him acting, and I hate using that because that's such an easy, like meme-worthy like term to use, but like that's like how I felt like watching a majority of his performances. But
You're
that's
like,
the one
this
where
is
it's like
acting.
exactly, it's like acting. Look at
So
him
wait,
give this
Adam,
performance.
what are your three?
Yeah, what are your three?
So,
Adam?
actually, two of mine are lining up with Dom's: Wolf of Wall Street, Prisoners, and then The Place Beyond the Pines.
Filmed in my hometown.
Yeah.
It's terrific.
I really like it. It's such also again one of those like needle in the haystack, like knockout cast. Like it's got
It's
Ryan Gosling, Eva not
Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper, but his wife that
Is it Eva Mendes?
Yeah, Eva Mendes.
Rose Byrne.
Rose Byrne, Ray
Liotta.
Liotta.
Isn't Dane DeHaan one of the kids too later on?
Mahershala Ali before he was
Before he became Mahershala Ali.
It's amazing. It's like two movies in one.
It's a towering picture. I
Yeah.
think that was the word I would use to describe it. It was just so like it was overwhelming what was happening.
Yeah.
And it was just such a small, intimate movie, but it
Yeah.
felt epic and it felt like it spanned
felt really real.
generations. It was insane.
Yeah, so I haven't watched that movie, unfortunately, but from what I've heard, and this is the big thing, like I said, because it's directed by Derek Cianfrance, who directed Blue Valentine in 2010, and then went on to direct one of my least favorite movies, that's slogfest called The Light Between Oceans with Michael Fassbender and Alicia Vikander back when they were dating in 2016. Oh my God, what a snooze fest that movie was. But the thing that I've heard a lot,
Between
and maybe you could speak to this as well, the thing that I heard a lot about The Place Beyond the Pines is that it was a situation where the first half of the movie felt so good that by the time the second half came around, it was kind of like trying to pick up some of the pieces to the point where it didn't feel as cohesive. Would you say that those are valid criticisms, or no? You feel like
No, yeah, I think that's valid. I think at some points you could even say it feels like two movies stitched together, just because the tone changes so abruptly after. I don't want to spoil anything, but something happens that sets off the rest of the movie, and you don't see that coming at all, which is one of the big things that I like about it. Is like I can't talk about it because I want to spoil it, but you do not see this thing coming. And then it happens, and you're like, "Where do we go from here?"
Yeah.
And then it takes a different perspective.
I would say
you know?
it's split into 3 acts. I think the first 2 acts are phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think the third act a
little slow.
It's a little choppy. It feels a little rushed, and they have an actor in the third act who plays Bradley Cooper's son, who I thought did not work. I thought he was acting in his own little world.
I'll agree with that.
But I think that's great. My 3, funny enough that we all match on 2 movies,
Yeah.
Wolf of Wall Street and Prisoners. I think these 2 movies absolutely have a shot to be in the top 10 of the decade by far.
I will say, I feel like Wolf of Wall Street has become the cool frat boy movie to like.
It has.
it's kind of replaced
but
Fight
it's-
Club
they-
in that
it's
sense?
like
unfortunate.
it. Yeah, they like it for I feel like the wrong reason. Like, oh my god, it's like drugs and
He
throws the midget at the
it's like he
wall.
throws a midget at the wall.
Yeah,
This is
and
the
look
coolest guy ever, even though he ripped off millions of people and
Yeah.
stole their
They're
fortunes.
like, I want to be Jordan Belfort. I'm like, you realize this.
The
guy
whole point of
is-
this movie is to
Yeah.
hold up a mirror and say, no, you are the goddamn problem, not ass, because you are who enable assholes like this to continue to thrive.
I think the reason they like it is because it's a life of luxury that's like, oh my god, he's getting to do this, snorting a coke off a cooker's ass. Are you
Yeah.
telling? And that's what's exciting about
And
it.
I definitely agree that it does take away from kind of the overall impact that movie had, which it is still like, to me, like a
great, yeah.
masterclass.
But
Like Scorsese directs that movie like a 30-year-old. It's a 3-hour long movie that feels like an hour and a half. It's
Yeah.
like you're so invested in it and you're so along for the ride and all this excess that by the time you realize that it's been like an hour and a half, you're like, oh shit, that was 20 minutes, wasn't it?
I would say my third movie is the one that I think has to be in the running. Inside Llewyn Davis. Have you guys seen
yeah,
it?
the
It
Coen
is-
Brothers one from that
It
year.
is a fucking dream, that
Yeah.
movie. I just saw it recently, like a few months ago.
It is really
and
good.
it knocked me out. It is absolutely, I would say riveting because it's a slow movie, but it's amazing. I think all 3 of the movie, Prisoners, Inside Llewyn Davis, Wolf of Wall Street. I think they belong in the best of the decade. The character work that's done in that movie.
Yeah, Inside Llewyn Davis was one I didn't get a shot to see it. I've caught up on a majority of the Coen brothers movies from this decade. True Grit, was not a fan of Hail Caesar. I enjoyed Ballad of Buster Scruggs a lot. But yeah, so overall, I think that we can agree. So Wolf of Wall Street and Prisoners, I think we can both agree are in there. So if we had to vote, so Inside Llewyn Davis, Place Beyond the Pines, and Her.
If we're talking about it later, we can rebuttal and be like, well, I need this to be on there. Everyone can have like one personal like veto or like override.
Yeah, I definitely think
Yeah.
that should be a thing. So I'll put them all down then for in that sense. So then we're moving on.
2014.
14. Oh man, this
Hard.
I was dreading this year.
don't even
I'm
know if
honestly,
I have
I was
my three.
dreading this year because this
so
is
much.
so friggin' difficult to get to because
I know I got 2 of them.
oh man, where do you even start? I have my top 3 favorites from the year, which are Birdman, Nightcrawler, and Whiplash. But oh my God, Interstellar, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Guardians of the Galaxy, Gone Girl, What We Do in the Shadows. Like the list goes on and on and on.
Action movies were
action
insane
movies were great.
that year.
That was the year we got John Wick and Edge of Tomorrow that year.
Yeah.
And then X-Men Days of
X-Men Days of Future Past, Captain America: The Winter Soldier,
The Raid 2.
The Raid 2. Oh my
a
God,
lot.
what else? 22 Jump Street, even for comedies. 22 Jump Street, The Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Snowpiercer.
Snowpiercer.
2014 was
2014 was gangbusters.
And 2014 was, I think, probably the best year overall. Not, just of.
It had so many hitters.
I think for movies, 2014 was one of those out of the decade that stood out, and people like started going back. I think from 2014 on, it kind of sparked that interest again.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the highest grossing movie of 2014 wasn't a superhero movie. It was American Sniper.
Which is insane. Like when was the last time that... Actually, wait, no. Overall, the highest grossing I thought was Guardians of the Galaxy.
I thought American Sniper
I think it was Guardians of the Galaxy. American Sniper, I think, made records because at the time it
Well,
was
let's
highest
not
grossing rated
Google
R
it because
movie.
I don't want to be wrong.
Yeah.
Let's
I
just
get that
keep going
sense.
with my little...
I don't
we don't have
blame
a
you.
fact checker.
Yeah, of course, we're not talking about foreign because then we have to acknowledge that Transformers movie that came out that year, even though I love all those movies.
your
But we're not
three-
going to talk about
you got
that.
Nightcrawler.
So I would put in Birdman, Whiplash, and Nightcrawler to me. Those are like seminal
that's a
top
good-
3
that's
what
a good
defined
three.
that year.
Yeah.
What about you, Adam?
I also have Nightcrawler on there. I think Gyllenhaal is fantastic in that role, and it says a lot about media and what people will do to get to the top, and like just people using people in general. I feel like, and how like just how the media can spin things, and all that. It's a very well layered movie, I think. So Nightcrawler, Interstellar, and then I was honestly between also Whiplash and Birdman. And Birdman won Best Picture, obviously, but I think Whiplash is just fantastic. I think Miles Teller does a great job in it. J.K. Simmons, like he
Just as like you want to talk about like the overall character
performance.
struggle of like
he won Best Supporting Actor in that, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
and
he
it's like, but
deserved
just
that
in terms of like the struggle,
wholeheartedly.
kind of like continuing in a more realistic sense, I guess you could say that the Black Swan struggle of doing what is it that you're willing to do in order to become the best, and kind of like how that's all encapsulated in J.K. Simmons' performance, where as despicable as that character is, you understand why he's doing what it is that he's doing. And the thing is that even as over the top and ridiculous as he is, he never stops being a human being. Like he is visibly moved when he finds out that former student of his killed himself. So like, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, my 3. I would absolutely put Whiplash in there. That's like the only one I'm certain is in my top 3. The other 2 I just thought of recently. I'm going to put Edge of Tomorrow and I'm going to put Boyhood. Boyhood to me, I remember that and Birdman were kind of going tit for tat in the award seasons. I'm heartbroken that Boyhood
Really
didn't
happy
get.
that
Because it
Boyhood
took 12
didn't
years
win,
to make.
because that's the only gimmick it has
loved
going
Boyhood.
for it. I'm sorry, that movie's. I don't think that movie's very good. I really don't.
I think it's great. It's very simple. You're just existing with this kid as he just grows up, and nothing monumental's happening. You're just living life. I loved watching. I thought it was fantastic. Edge of Tomorrow. I mean, in terms of action movies that define the decade. Edge of Tomorrow did not define it. It did not make a lot of money,
But it was awesome.
It was fucking awesome.
That would talk
I
about a
think
movie that got
it's-
screwed by its marketing campaign.
I mean, Tom Cruise. I think it's his best movie. Like
What?
up there.
You think it's his
up
best?
There. I think
well,
overall.
talking best from a performance standpoint or just in terms of action?
No, not performance,
Oh,
but
okay.
like
because
just
to me, like he
overall.
still has a top Tropic Thunder.
Yeah,
So
like because Tom Cruise has 2 types of vehicles, if you will. He has like his action things, and then he has his true Magnolias, A Few Good Men, the art movies. Jerry
Right.
Maguire, Edge of Tomorrow is the best of his action movies, and Emily Blunt turns in I mean, people talk about, Charlize Theron
I
as
love
Furiosa for Mad Max. I think Emily Blunt as like the full metal bitch in Edge of Tomorrow. She is fucking
That's
great.
a great description. But yeah, I'm definitely in terms of like bounce it back off Edge
Do we
of
do
Tomorrow.
4 for 2014?
We kind of have to. There's so many to choose
right now
from.
for the nominations.
For right now, there's so many to choose
so
from.
we got Whiplash.
We got
Definitely.
Whiplash. What's it called? Are we like pretty much all set up on Nightcrawler?
Yeah.
Personally, I'm not giant on Nightcrawler, but I respect it, and I respect your guys' opinion.
Oh, thank you.
So we'll keep it.
All right. And then what's it called? And then Birdman. Is that pretty much all in for us?
I'll exchange Interstellar for Birdman.
Okay.
Simply
Don't
because
I love Interstellar.
'cause we already
Interstellar is
have,
probably my favorite Nolan movie
We
this
have
decade.
a Nolan contender earlier.
Yeah, I don't like Interstellar too, so I
Oh, you're
personally-
one of the Interstellar haters.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
remember fighting with a lot of those guys when that movie first came out.
Yeah. Oh, I don't. Oh, thanks. I don't like it at all. I think it's. I don't say this a lot. I think it's pretentious.
Oh,
I think
no.
I think it sucks, dude.
Oh no, you're one of those guys.
Unfortunately, I just hate it every time I watch. When the movie ended and like it kind of had like a nice little what does it mean? I was just like, fuck this, I'm out of here. I was like, this is bullshit. I don't like that. And I respect the filmmaking. It's technically very well made.
Yeah, it's
but
oh my
just
God,
the
visuals in
story
that
of it
movie.
all. I just don't like it. I just don't like it at all.
That's fair.
I mean, just kind of nothing new.
It's just like that one movie. Everybody's
Yeah.
got their one.
I get it. Like that's another one. It was very similar to me for the experience that I had with Ad Astra this year, where I personally loved it, but I absolutely understand what it is that people don't like about
It's
it.
gonna win stuff.
Yeah,
though.
it absolutely is gonna win.
Yeah.
Very rightfully so. Won visual effects. Although,
I'll say.
quick question: are you hit or miss on the score? Because I really like that
Interstellar?
score, but everyone says that like that's kind of like in their thing of like, oh, Hans Zimmer only ever does one type of score. I'm like, that to me like might be his best score.
Okay, yeah, because Pirates of the Caribbean is the same thing as The Dark Knight,
Right?
For sure.
They fucking they got it like the mixed.
I like the Interstellar score. I don't think it's amazing. I think it gets the job done.
It's a score.
Yeah,
It's a score. It does what
yeah.
scores need to do.
Yeah.
All right. So Birdman, Nightcrawler, Whiplash, and then if we put one more.
It's one of yours, right?
Yeah.
I'll put Edge of Tomorrow up.
All right, yeah,
Well,
I'll happily
just
put
to
Edge of
have it in
Tomorrow
there.
on
I don't
there,
think it's gonna do any damage, but
Yeah,
all
just
right.
talk
Honorable
about that
mention.
movie. I feel like that one
it's
just again
such
one.
a damn good.
Yeah,
movie.
one that got screwed over by its marketing campaign. They had no idea how to
So
market
we're
that
at
movie. I hated the trailers.
2015.
Yeah, we're on 2015.
It's a little
now.
less hard.
I gotta tell you, this year
it's kind of
wasn't very
easier.
good as
I
well.
really out of my three, like I'm pretty happy only sticking one on here because I feel like it is kind of the defining moment. So I feel like this
Can
is
we
the
all
year.
say it at the same time? Because I know the one
let's
movie.
just get it over with.
Oh.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
Mad
Ex
Max
Machina.
Fury
Oh, I was
Road.
gonna say
I
Ex
was gonna say Ex
Machina.
Machina.
Oh,
Yeah.
are you kidding me?
Oh, I thought
Ex
it was Ex
Machina.
Machina.
Yeah, I also said Ex Machina.
Oh man.
No.
Yeah.
Come on,
I know
man.
Mad Max is on there too, though. I think both of them.
Mad Max.
Even though Mad Max is not in my personal top three, I absolutely understand like why that would be on there. That was one that was one where I saw it. I'm like, okay, this is a really cool, awesome action
It's
movie.
cool.
I really dug that.
Yeah.
You know, especially for when it came out. It was like a week after Age of Ultron, and that like blew me away in terms of like its action. But then everyone was raving about how it's like, oh my god, best of the decade, and that was to me when I'm like, okay, it's good, but like best of the decade, like, and but now looking back, like especially now, like having sort of like lived through the last 2 years with the
such
Disney
a
domination.
rewatchability
But
to
yeah,
it.
no,
I mean,
that movie definitely does have a rewatchability that not a lot of
It
others
just
do.
feels like you're just in hell, like watching this.
Yeah,
movie. Like,
definitely.
What is this? It's fantastic.
So my 3 for 2015, Ex Machina, obviously.
Yeah.
Mad Max. And then it's between, for the third one, it's kind of a toss-up between Sicario and The Revenant.
Yeah. Oh, see, that's the thing. Sicario, yes, The Revenant, I think is overrated.
Really?
I'm one of the few people that thinks The Revenant was over. I think, because I was so blown away by Birdman, and I could not wait. I'm like, yes, he's got, no joke, the minute that I heard that guy had his next movie coming out the year later, and it was with
Inarritu?
DiCaprio, I didn't even know what the movie was about. I didn't see a trailer ending. I'm like, DiCaprio's winning the Oscar for that. He hasn't won before.
I
It's
think
getting to the
he-
point. I'm like, he is absolutely going to win. And looking back, I'm like, okay, if we're just taking out all of the Oscar bullshit, pandering
He won
bullshit,
for the wrong
he won
thing.
for the wrong movie. That much is obvious.
He
We
should
all
have
know
won
that.
for Wolf of Wall Street.
My problem is that in
agree.
Irrelevance, I feel like my problem is that movie is meandering and not in an expressive way. It feels like he is so much more interested in telling the story of the scenery and the overall like kind of existence in that life than he is in telling that character struggle. And I'm not saying it has to be purely a character struggle, but it feels like at points like he can't really decide what it is that he wants to do it on, to the point where it literally feels like this is probably the only time I would say where Leo literally does have plot armor on. To the point where he's surviving all of these different scenarios, and I'm like, okay, really? And it also doesn't help that the most tense moment of the movie happens within like the first 20 minutes. And the rest of it is kind of just like all just like this one meander. It's interesting from a structural standpoint, but I can't get invested in it the way that everyone else does.
So then what are your three?
For me, it's The Big Short is my number 3. I love that movie.
Oh, so you also have
mean
Ex
that
Machina.
I also have Ex Machina.
class?
Yes, that economics class that to me, and I'll tell you why it worked. Because to me, what you call an economics class, I call, making people aware of an incident that not only were they not aware of, because it's crazy how most people, because we were all little kids when it happened, but I barely remember the housing crisis at all. But now understand
because you weren't buying houses.
Exactly. I wasn't buying houses at 11 years old. But just to make that understand, and I get it, we also do have to understand that this is America that we're living in, and as much as you can hammer a point home, it is very easy to detract people. And I think that what Adam McKay does brilliantly about that movie, that I think everyone just wants to write him off of because it's like, oh, the guy who did Anchorman and Step Brothers is doing it. The thing that everyone writes him off about is that he uses the absurdity in his previous movies in order to tell an absurd story. And in a way, making those characters and those scenarios feel even more human and even more goddamn terrifying as to how it almost happened.
Little humble brag. I tweeted at him once and he tweeted back to me.
That's amazing.
So it's easy to say we're friends.
Just a little bit.
I
You
saw-
kind of look like a younger version of him too, in a weird way.
Well, we have a lot in common. He used to do improv. He was one of the founding people at UCB, in the city.
Wow.
And
That's what's up.
if I could work with Will Ferrell in the future, that would be amazing.
Hey, well,
Yeah.
I was about to say, I don't know how much that'll be great now, because I don't remember the last time Will Ferrell had a great movie on his hands. But the last thing I'll say about that
Debatable.
is that with Ex Machina, I feel like we can all agree. Like, don't get me wrong, A24 had some big haters on their hands before, Spring Breakers, The Bling Ring, all that. But I think we can agree Ex Machina is definitively the movie that put A24 on the map.
Yes.
I feel like.
Yeah, I think because it was one of the first ones that got an Oscar.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, let's take A24.
I mean,
seriously.
that movie was very just watching. I was like, this is very profound. I really like this.
Yeah.
It's not on my top 3. My top 3, Mad Max Fury Road, I think is a definite for that year. Another one I think is Steve Jobs, the one
Very
with Michael
underrated
Fassbender.
movie.
I loved it.
Very underrated
From
movie.
Oh, the Fassbender one. Yeah.
from a
I was
dialogue.
thinking of
the dialogue in that movie. I mean, Aaron Sorkin wrote it. But
I was thinking of the Ashton Kutcher Jobs one.
Yep,
Which-
you and everyone else, and it sucks that movie had to come out first,
that
because
was his
that movie is
biggest-
the reason why nobody watched Steve Jobs, which
It's
is so
great.
disappointing, because Steve
But
Jobs
why
is
did they
phenomenal.
have to make 2 within the course of what was
Because
it,
that
2 or
one
3
wasn't
years?
because I think what
I
happened
think
was
the Ashton Kutcher one was so bad. They're like,
I think
we
the
need
Ashton
to-
Kutcher one was so bad that they needed to release the next one in order to kind of apologize. And what they wanted to do was they wanted it to be like the next Fincher Sorkin collaboration, because Sorkin was writing it and Fincher was going to direct back. I think they had Bale attached originally, and then they both walked to work on other stuff, and they ended up getting Danny Boyle. And Danny Boyle, I feel like, does not get enough credit for
He
that
did a
movie. He
great
directs
job.
the hell out of that movie.
The whole movie's told in 3 acts.
Yeah.
But it's just 3 sequences.
Yeah, but it's 3 sequences from his life. It kind of pulls more of a Love and Mercy act rather than the typical biopic
Yeah,
act.
no,
And
it's not a
looking back,
biopic at all.
especially with how the traditional biopic
I
has
wish
kind of
more
become
movies that were about biopics, were told like this, where it's inventive and it's fictionalized because he's taking all of the important aspects of his life that we hear about that happened over the course of years, and he puts them into one sequence where he's just hearing about them all at the same time, and you're just in it with them.
So then, what about you? What are your 3?
Well, Steve Jobs and Mad Max, and then my third one is going to be Bone Tomahawk. It's
Okay.
directed by S.
as
Craig
Craig
Zahler.
Zahler, getting a little bit
Oh,
of
I thought it was Zahler.
Zahler, Zahler,
it's
however you pronounce
whatever.
it.
I think it's a Western. It was the second movie that Kurt Russell did that year where he had a giant fucking mustache and long hair. He put it to use. He grew it all. He's like, okay, I'll do Hateful Eight, and then I'll do this other Western, Bone Tomahawk. I think Bone Tomahawk is a far better film than the Hateful Eight. And it's about it's a rescue movie, kind of like The Searchers, where it's 4 guys in the West. They're going to rescue a damsel in distress. Well, that rhymed.
Oh, wow, I was about to say, you can put your poetry skills to use
the
there.
person, they're trying to get her back from a tribe of cannibals, basically. So it injects the horror genre with this gratuitous, just violent, really messed
But
up.
you're talking the Western genre?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh wait, what did I say?
You said the horror genre.
Oh yeah. Well, it's injecting
happens. I do
the
it
Western
all the
genre
time.
with horror, and it works so well. It's a slow burn, but by the time the third act kicks in, you're just like, what the hell? And there are things that happen in that movie that I have never seen in a movie. in terms of just acts of violence and ways to kill a man.
In terms of violent movies, 2015, honorable mention, Green Room.
Yeah,
that was 16.
Green Room
That's
16.
wait, was it?
Green Room was wide release 16. I know, goddamn Letterboxd. And if we're wrapping that up before we head on, I just wanted to give a shout out to what I think is the best animated movie of the decade, Inside Out. Again, saw that right when I graduated high school. It's a beautiful movie. To me, it's one of the best. I don't think it's Pixar's best, but I definitely think it is one of the best. To me, it's one of their only great movies that they did this decade. To me, this decade was very, very disappointing and sad because Pixar is like one of the powerhouses of my childhood, and seeing how they really only had two great, like really moving installments this decade, I had to give that a shout out. Even if it doesn't make best of the decade, I definitely think it deserves a warrant. So
2015, we're doing Mad Max.
So I got Mad Max, Ex Machina, and then Sicario is what we want to decide on.
Yeah,
overall,
I'm fine. I'm fine leaving
I'll let the
mine
big short
out.
slide.
I'll leave mine out. Yeah, that's fine.
It happens. We'll get one in. So then moving on to 2016. So this is where I would say
It gets a little easier.
It gets a little easier because, again, the easy excuse to go to is that this is where overall quality started to dip. But I definitely think that we can't rule out.
There were some standouts.
There were definitely some standouts, but it definitely was. The thing that I will say about these last 3 years since then is that this is where it became a lot easier to figure out what the standouts were, because it was.
I don't know. 2017 is going to be also hard.
2017 will be tricky, but I feel like that was where a majority of the blockbusters that we had because we were spoiled. We were spoiled with some great blockbusters earlier this decade. That was where it really kind of started to slip. I made this famous argument about, to me, it was one of the most disappointing summers ever, where it's like I felt like, with the exception of Captain America: Civil War and The Nice Guys, every single movie that I went to Kubo and the Two Strings and War Dogs, every single movie that I went to that summer just completely disappointed me. And I was like, why am I even watching this? And it got kind of continued into November, but we still got some good ones. So let's just get the easy one out of the way. I feel like Moonlight, we'll get to that choice, but Moonlight, I feel like, is one that is definitely going to be, without a doubt, one of the most groundbreaking, defining movies of the decade. Famously caused the Best Picture debacle of that year.
It's very good. It's a very good movie.
But I really don't think anyone would remember it had that not happened.
Yeah, I unfortunately don't.
Everyone would have been just talking about La La Land
I
unfortunately
don't think it's that memorable. Or
it's good.
It's a very good film that plays with a lot of very good ideas. But it didn't stick as soon as I left the theater. Maybe it's because the movie wasn't made for me.
You have a different perspective.
Yeah, when I left, I was like, that's a very good movie. And then I just drove home and I was like, all right, so
I'm
what
sorry,
movie do I gotta see?
I gotta be honest, I think you guys are bugging. I think that movie is I get it. It's not exactly the most relatable circumstances for us, three white guys that grew up in the suburbs areas of New York.
Having to relate to it. I mean, you can relate to. You don't need to relate to his individual struggle of being a black kid in Miami who's also gay in a low income.
There's specifically in the crack epidemic period of the 80s.
You can empathize with the humanity, which I think we all did. You can really get with that, but just overall the film, I just think it. I don't know. I just think it kind of existed, and there was really, I don't know. I don't really have much to say about it, but I didn't really think about him. It just didn't resonate.
See, I watched that movie several times since then. I just feel like that movie's statements about homosexuality, that movie's statements about growing up and what that really means, and how it's one of the few movies that I've seen where they use the it's one of the most unique uses of the 3-act structure in film that I've ever seen. And yeah, it was just a movie that just I remember seeing the trailers and thinking, okay, that looks cool, and just that movie having a very, very profound effect on me. But yeah, so Adam, what would your 3 be from 2016?
My 3, definitely La La Land, Hell or High Water, and Nocturnal Animals.
Oh, yes. Wow. We watched that in the same screening. I remember because that was the first time that a lot of people had watched that movie.
I watched Nocturnal Animals, and I was just breathless for most of it. And then when it ended, I was just like, oh.
I feel bad. I actually haven't seen Nocturnal Animals or Hell or High Water, so I'm kind of that's a good list, man.
Watch them tonight.
It's a very, very tricky thing. If I'm gonna go my 3, then my 3, Moonlight. I still think y'all are bugging. Swiss Army Man, I think, is one that's super underrated and does not get talked about enough. And as much as I would love to put Nocturnal Animals, I'm really glad that you gave it a shout out. I'm hoping that that's the means of how we put it on there. But I'm going Sing Street. Sing Street is, to me,
you guys have that one in common.
Most definitely. This movie is
maybe the best movie of
possibly
the decade.
That movie, just in terms of coming of age. It's sweet. It's simple. If you love music, if you love having a good time, if you love for me, that to me is the best idea of like a good, nice throwback movie, while at the same time just having its complete originality. Because the songs, you want to talk about one of the movies that is one of the few amazing original soundtracks of that year, that is one of them.
It is
Brandon,
pure.
over to you.
Sing Street is by far one of my picks. It is pure, unadulterated joy at the cinema. I mean, the music is great. The characters are great. I just, every time I watch it, the first time I watched it again right after. It was so I watched it like 3 times in a 48-hour period.
So that's one of your top 3. What
By
are the
far.
other 2?
And then I will also throw in La La Land with you. I think that probably should have won over Moonlight. I think that's more of a
Man, I still
memorable
think you
film.
guys are bugging,
I think, because
but
every
it won,
well,
like,
here's the thing.
5.
It's a great looking technical movie.
So no, every year I was talking about this earlier. There's always one movie that can unite casual film fans and critics, and I think from that year it was La La Land.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of casual movie fans that saw that and they respected the artistry of it, and then they start talking about like some of the throwbacks I have with like old French cinema and stuff. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
So I would put that in there. And then my third one, I'm gonna throw in Captain America: Civil War. I think it's my personal MCU favorite. I think it's a political drama. It's a great sequel to The Winter Soldier. The characters they're all given really great stuff to do. What Downey does in that movie as Iron Man is probably the best he's ever been.
That to me, I
character.
feel I will bouncing off that point. I will say that to me, seeing what Downey did in that movie, that was what I was expecting from Iron Man 3. That to me is what gave me like the rebirth of Downey into the
and
MCU.
it has a lot of great kid action, like that airport scene, which was like fun. But for me, it's that end sequence with Cap with him in the bunker. I think that sequence
the scene,
is
the scene where Tony Stark gets upset that his best friend, Captain America's best friend, killed his parents, and then they both beat the shit out of him for it.
Yeah,
You're upset.
Yeah.
We're gonna kick your ass now. Get over it.
I mean, in their
sequence.
defense, he did kind of start it. So,
but it's some of the best. It's some of the best, most emotionally charged filmmaking that the MCU has ever done. I'd say more so than what they do with the other, Infinity War and Endgame. That end sequence of Civil War made me go like, all right, like this is really cinema, like what they're doing here.
It's so but careful. I was like, careful. Oh no! Scorsese and Josh are gonna hear this. They're gonna cut our throats tonight for freaking calling Marvel cinema.
I would say
I will say to bounce off of that point is that to me I feel like is what established the Russos and kind of their track record where every other one where the Russos with their track record in Marvel where it's like they got the one movie that's super tight and deformed and is like really entertaining and is constantly has you on the edge of your seat, and then they have the other one that's a little bit more laid back and a little bit more emotional, but once you get to that gut punches, oh man, so I feel and I like Civil War a lot, but it's another one of those movies where it's like the more I've thought about it, the more and more it's gone down on my list as opposed to other more recent efforts. So that to me is why
it's not as consistent.
Totally, it is not as
like.
consistent. You're right, and there are certain sequences to me that feel a little bit out of place, and I feel like okay, it works. I still very, very much enjoy it, and the fact that they pulled it off, I really enjoy.
So what we have down for 2016 right now is what we're narrowing it down to. La La Land.
Yes. Which I hate that I have to begrudging and
I'll say La La Land, Moonlight, and Sing Street.
I'd put Sing Street. Me personally, I would rather knock off La La Land for Nocturnal Animals, but if
I would knock off Moonlight though. So
all right, so
let's just only take Sing Street.
Yes, only Sing Street. So Moonlight, La La Land, and Sing Street. Those are the ones that we'll go for that year.
Okay, let's for that year. Let's do La La Land and Sing Street.
Just La La Land and Sing Street?
Yeah, both singing movies. I don't know.
I absolutely agree.
Musicals came back.
I absolutely agree.
Oh man.
We gotta make tough decisions, Dom, and we don't want our list to be like everybody else's.
I know, but
I mean, like 2/3 of us aren't crazy about.
Sorry, but if that's one decision that I'm gonna regret in the long run, I'm like, fine. I guess I might have to make a personal list. All right, we're almost done. We're almost done
17?
with our nominations. 2017, 2 years ago, we are
also
all into college. I was about to say you're a year of graduating high school. Yeah, for me again, this year. It's a little bit easier, but I get why some people think that it's hard for me. This was another situation where it's like I definitely a lot of the blockbusters. That was when they went from being disappointed to just bad. That was the summer that we got. Oh boy, let us not forget the beginning of the Dark Universe, The Mummy with Tom Cruise. Oh man, yeah, that led to a dark universe, all right.
I knew it was going to be bad. That's why I didn't see it.
You and everyone else. That's why that movie bombed.
So wait, what are we thinking?
Yeah, so 2017.
2017's hard.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Are you guys? I think I got 3.
You got 3. If you want, you can lead it off then.
Absolutely one. My number 1 is probably Logan. I think that.
Yeah.
I mean.
That's my favorite movie of that year.
Yeah, it's my favorite that year.
Hugh
Talk
Jackman's
about
performance.
redefining the comic book genre. It kind of closes the book not just on Jackman and then the X-Men series. It feels like it closes the book on superhero movies as we knew them, and it's really and it deals with a lot of big ideas about violence and the ramifications of that on one's life. I'd say that's definite for me. The other 2,
What I like about it is it doesn't feel like a superhero movie.
No, it's
the
a
same
Western.
way. The same way The Dark Knight doesn't feel like a superhero.
That's a
movie.
mob movie.
It's like it's a mob or crime drama with superhero elements in it, just like how Logan's like a Western, like neo-noir almost.
Yeah,
you know what
absolutely.
I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And also just in terms of like talking about like you want to talk about ramifications and how it serves as a great character study. Talk about like the ramifications of your actions just on yourself and how
his body's killing
like
him.
literally his body is telling a story in and of itself in that movie where you finally see him just like at the end of the road, literally, where he's like
He looks like shit.
He looks
by
like
the
shit.
end of it.
His cuts are oozing pus. His wounds are not healing as well.
It's one of the movies that you watch and as you're watching.
To
you're
me,
like,
it's
this is a classic movie I'm watching right now.
To me, it's the Unforgiven of the superhero genre. Literally to the point where they're doing allusions in the movie itself to Shane, where you have Patrick Stewart watching that movie.
It feels like it closes a book.
So we're all agreeing.
We're all agreeing. Logan is definitely
so
on
my other 2, one of them would be I, Tonya. I thought that was like a modern day Goodfellas on ice.
It was really
It
good.
was fantastic. The acting all across the board's amazing. The script was strong.
From the director of the Fright Night remake.
Yeah, and the directing was probably the
Really
star
well
of the
done.
movie. He did a fantastic job. You ended up sympathizing with freaking Tanya Harding.
Of all people.
You're like, wow, like this is crazy. By
Yeah.
then I was crying for her. So I would say that is my second. And then my third, I would... Any other day, I'd go with Good Time, but I want to be different. I'm going to go with Mother. I think that movie is such
you
a...
contrarian, you.
I think it's
You
so awesome.
contrarian,
Yeah.
you.
I just think it's so batshit crazy with all the Bible metaphors, and by the end, it just explodes.
It's like, we get it. It's the
easy-
Bible.
it's
Now, what are
easy
you trying to say? Oh,
It's
wait,
easy to do
nothing?
a movie like that where it's like, okay, it's going to start slow, then by the end, it's going to be crazy, but I think it just works. And then I'll just say honorable mention, 3 Billboards, I thought was terrific.
3 Billboards is really great. Better than The Shape of Water, at least. But, that's neither here nor there. That's neither here nor there. So, Adam, what would you say your 3 are? Other 2 from that year.
2017 is hard because we also got, correct me if I'm wrong, You Were Never Really Here?
That was 2018.
Was that?
Yep.
Okay, so then that and First Reform were both
2018.
Okay, then those are safe. But so then my other 2 would probably be Get Out
I forgot about
and Blade Runner 2049.
Oh man, this is where it's going to be tough because let me tell you something. So you remember how much I hated that movie when I watched it the
Blade
first
Runner?
time? Yeah, I hated that movie the first time I watched it. I rewatched it a couple weeks ago. I'm like, oh my god, I want to time travel back to 2 years ago and punch myself in the face. What the hell did I miss?
fantastic.
not
Oh
agreeing
my
with
god,
your movie.
literally for not even know. But like just that movie, just in terms of like, I feel like that's the last time we're ever going to get that type of like a visual enthralling experience. And there are still problems with the movie. I don't think it's a perfect movie, but I definitely think that in terms of like kind of continuing what the original Blade Runner was trying to say, and to me being one of the few sequels to actually expand on the ideas and kind of talk about it from like the opposite perspective, it really, really does work because in a way tricking you into thinking that that's Ryan Gosling's movie when it really is wrapping up Harrison Ford's arc.
Yeah.
But no, for me, I share 2 choices. I share Logan and Get Out. Get Out for me was like finally the movie that, besides just doing everything right that like Jordan Peele was setting out to accomplish with exploring race relations, what they really are.
I want to take out Mother and switch with Get Out.
But what's it called? But also just for me, finally being the movie that says, "Oh my God, horror movies can actually tell a story and be good and not just rely on cheap schlock and jump scares." Thank friggin' God. And then, but no, my choice for number 3 is actually going to be actually going to bounce off of yours. Again, it was a tough one. I had a few ones to choose from, but for me, I'm going to go with A Good Time as well. Just in terms of like setting up for what the Safdies would do this year.
So we have like 6 movies for 2017.
Seriously.
Okay,
No,
I'd say
it's
Logan,
tricky.
I'd
It's
say
definitely a tricky
Logan,
one.
Get Out, definites, and then
Most
I
definitely.
think, I don't know. I mean, do we think anyone else?
I'm
has
gonna
like a
use
shot?
I'm gonna use my one override right now for Blade Runner 2049.
And you know what? As much as I
agree.
love Good Time, I will give that one to you.
Yeah.
I will give you Blade Runner.
I mean, so now we're allowed to. I mean, I fucking love I, Tonya. I think it's fantastic.
I, Tanya's terrific, and it's so close for me.
Let's keep I, Tonya in there and then see what happens.
We'll
So
keep
is that
I,
your
Tonya
one
in the
override?
running.
Is that your
Well,
one
because
override?
Sing Street and Prisoners like went in, no problem. Those are my other two picks. Yeah, I, Tonya will be my little override because I
Okay.
feel like that's the one that might not have a shot otherwise.
Yeah.
All right, so we're making good progress. So, second to last year of the decade, 2018. And if you want my humble opinion, the worst year of this entire decade. I absolutely despised most of it. Just overall, just like the sense of movies. Well, I shouldn't say that. You know why? Because it was the year we got a lot of directorial debuts that year. A lot of breakouts for like kind of new artists and what that would establish. I liked a decent amount of them. I did not like I did not like just as much of them. But I just feel like overall, to me, that was the year that just gave me... To me, that's the only year that feels like it has no identity.
There's
of that,
one that stands out for 2018. Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse, I'll give you, definitely. But even that one, it's like, there's just such a hodgepodge of different creative voices that are involved. And that's not a bad thing, not at all. Like, even to me, that's the only Lord and Miller production that I've seen that doesn't feel specifically like a Lord and Miller movie. It feels like so many different things at once. And don't get me wrong, I love that. Part of that is what makes the charm of Spider-Verse and what makes that such an interesting and unique and amazing movie. But overall, for me, it's just like,
So what are your three?
That's the trick, because that's really the only year that I really didn't have a dead set three, because it's kind of anyone. But if we're going into the Spider-Verse, I'll put Into the Spider-Verse on there, and then my other two are Roma and mid-90s. For me, those are like my two personal favorites. But it's like, it's probably going to be like completely different. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if like no other movie from 2018 makes it onto the list.
What about you?
So I already, Spider-Verse is on there. Then Hereditary, I think it's
Fantastic.
just amazing. It's
great.
I like it better than Midsommar.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then it's honestly is a toss-up between Black Klansman and Isle of Dogs.
Ooh,
really
good choice.
like that.
Good choice. Underrated.
Yeah. Just the amount of time and energy and patience that it took to make that movie. Isle of Dogs, oh my god, just wow.
I never saw that, but Black Klansman's terrific.
Black Klansman's definitely a terrific movie.
I think it's Spike Lee's best movie since Do the Right Thing, which is crazy because they're so far
Yeah,
apart.
what I like is that Black Klansman is a lot more focused, but also it's kind of expanding upon the ideas that he was trying to tap with Do the Right Thing. Do the Right Thing is a phenomenal first outing, and the fact that he did that at like, what was he, like 26, like fresh out of NYU when he did that, and the fact that he made it just to make it more focused, while also to me including kind of, and again, we touched upon this a little bit in Watchmen, how Watchmen kind of continued that idea, the idea of the manipulative powers of media. And at the same time, like kind of how that's so intermingled with race relations. Like I feel like between Get Out started that, and then Black Klansman continued that struggle in terms of like how media, how the influential powers of media and race relations are so closely intertwined.
So man, I would say I'll agree with Spider-Verse. I'll put that as one of them. I'll say I have two honorable mentions. One's First Reformed. I think it's terrific.
Oh, yeah.
I think it really does feel like a modern day Taxi Driver in a weird way.
But the same guy who wrote it, he
directed it. Yeah. So I'd say that, and then another honorable mention would be Mandy. I thought that movie was fucking
Back to
crazy.
Panos Cosmatos.
Fucking crazy. It was awesome. Nicolas Cage just giving it his all, height of his powers. But I'd say my top three: Spider-Verse. But then I'll say A Star Is Born. I loved it. I know it probably won't make it into like so that's fine if we leave it out. I just want to say it. I think it's this big, beautiful love story. Oh my god! I just think
just Bradley Cooper. I should make fun of it. I love Bradley Cooper in that movie. I don't know why I'm making fun of him.
Bradley Cooper in that movie is fucking astounding, and I love Gaga in that movie. I think it's just a big, beautiful love story.
You're
It's epic.
Gaga for Gaga? I'm sorry. I'll leave.
Yeah. No, I love it. And then my third one, I'll say Annihilation. I thought that was a terrific science
talked
fiction
about
movie.
enough that movie.
When I saw it, I was like, oh
another
my fucking
Alex
God.
Garland movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alex Garland, he knows
I
what
like
he is
him
doing.
more. I like him more than Ex Machina.
Really?
Unfortunately. Yeah, I'm not the biggest Ex Machina. I do really like it though. But yeah, so for me, I'll say, let's take A Star Is Born. I'll just say Spider-Verse and then Annihilation, and then I'm good.
Got it. All right, so what are we gonna say? So you'll take Spider-Verse and Annihilation. So I have Roma. I'll cut Roma and
I'd cut it because I wouldn't say it's one.
Yeah,
of the best of the
I get
decade.
why it's not for me. It's for me. It's my favorite movie of that year, but I absolutely understand why. Again, it's 2018. It's one of those years where it's like all those, even every single choice in my top 10 was very subjective and personal to me. And mid 90s has another one where it's like I love that movie for very personal reasons, but I understand why it's not like on the overall best. So let's go. So besides Into the Spider-Verse, so what would you say? Like Annihilation and
I'd say Black Klansman.
I would go Black Klansman.
Yeah,
honestly.
personally,
All right, so
that's
we'll do
just-
that.
yeah.
Annihilation and Black.
So those
Klansman.
three. Okay, that's cool. And then 2019.
And then
I mean, the year's not
2019.
completely over yet, but
Yeah,
I'll
okay,
tell
well,
you,
it technically is,
I'll
but-
tell you, I don't have three. I have two. And I have the only two movies that I think are like 5 out of 5 classic movies. I think they're gonna go down as the best of the decade. That is Parasite and The Irishman. I think by far you have to consider these in terms of best of not just this year but the decade. The Irishman is going to be a mob classic that stands up with Goodfellas and The Godfather. I think it's much better than Casino and Once Upon a Time in America. So it's already right up there, and I think it's got the staying power because it does something different and it talks about mortality and loyalty and regret and betrayal. It's fantastic. And then Parasite, talk about like, I mean, I went in not knowing anything about it. It is,
Which is the way that you have to go into for that movie.
Crazy because it's a comedy, like a Dirty Rotten Scoundrels at first, but then it shifts into a thriller, and by the end, it felt like this piece of like Hitchcockian cinema.
Yeah, it's
where I was
nuts.
just watching, like, oh my fucking god, this is what it felt like. Bong Joon-ho was not just writing where he thinks the story should go next; he was just transcribing the story that was just funneling to him, and it just felt natural and unexpected. It was.
He sat down and just did it.
It just came out of
yeah,
him. It just
literally.
spilled
It just
out of
came
him.
out.
It's what movies should be.
Would you say that it was cinema?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'll say Avengers Endgame is fucking awesome.
Yeah, Avengers Endgame
because
is
it
amazing.
adds a lot of humanity to the whole Marvel universe, and I think it's just terrific.
Yeah, if we're bouncing off of that, don't get me wrong, Irishman comes close. I definitely feel like Irishman is going to have a lot more staying power over at least one of my choices. But for me, I'll give you Parasite, most definitely, even though my number 3 of the year is 1917, which again, it's tough to talk about because it hasn't gotten a wide release yet. But my other two for me would be Uncut Gems and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But again, those are much more so for me like personal choices. To me, Uncut Gems, because I've never quite seen a movie that quite simulates the feeling of having a heart attack the way that movie does.
Pretty crazy.
And kind of
It's
the
nuts.
Safdies kind of like just expanding upon everything they did in Good Time and just completely like expanding it into like this crazy trek, like just a downward spiral into depravity, almost like you feel like you're going through this guy's mind as you're watching him. Besides the fact that it's Adam friggin' Sandler giving the best performance of his life.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where you want to talk about a movie that for me tells a story about cinema itself. Like
great.
that to me is what that movie perfectly encapsulates.
You know, I never looked at it that way. My opinion, I kind of saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as like if you were to watch like an episode of Seinfeld like on the big screen. It kind of feels like an episode of Seinfeld.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Where like you're just kind of hanging out with these people and not much happens, but fun things happen.
That's what I love about
And
it,
it's-
though.
And it's
That's
funny.
what I love about it, though.
It's a day
Yeah.
in the life of these guys who are watching the world they know kind of just leave and turn into something else.
In
And
a
they're
way,
like,
talking
well,
about the mortality of a certain time period, not
Yeah.
dissimilar to your movie.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Do I think it's gonna get any like Oscar noms for like DiCaprio or Pitt?
Oh, it's gonna get all of them.
It's gonna
all
get
of them, no
nominated.
when
question.
when you look at the rest of this year, I feel like I don't know. It was.
I don't think
I think
it's
they were
as-
just having a fun time.
Yeah, I don't think
they
it's
do, it
like
didn't
They
a
seem
both
like
were,
they,
they were and they weren't though, because this is another one that you could tell like Tarantino like had a lot of like, not only just personal feelings for, because he's telling basically about the town, story about the town that he grew up. But he said it like he's been marinating on this script for like 5 years now. It's his most subdued work in years, with even with the bombastic third act, which is like still amazing. But
So wait, Adam, what are your 3 you got?
my 3 Uncut Gems is up there. I also really liked Art of Self-Defense.
yeah, I haven't
Jesse
watched that.
Eisenberg.
Is that
see
good?
that.
It was really good. I walked in and I was like, let's give this a shot. And I walked out and I was like, that was all, everything like just kind of like ties itself together in a little bow by the end. And it's just a well-wrapped movie about toxic masculinity, and like Jesse Eisenberg's great in it. I think it's another really good performance since like The Social Network.
Nice.
But yeah, I think that was really good. And then finally, Jojo Rabbit, I think.
Yeah, Jojo Rabbit was
haven't
close
seen
for me.
it.
That
I
was
gotta
really
catch
close.
Yeah. Man, that movie, man, like,
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting to have such a range of emotions.
Yeah.
And then I walked in, and then it got real sad sometimes.
Yeah.
You
You know what it is about that movie that set me up? Because I told you, I was setting myself up for disappointment, and I didn't want to, because the whole thing that I've said about it is that, unfortunately, I don't find Thor Ragnarok to be the Marvel masterpiece that everyone regards it as, and my whole thing about that movie is I feel like Taika, as funny as that movie gets at points, I feel like the jokes are intentionally distracting to me. Like, it's not the typical Marvel brand of humor, but it feels like they're intentionally distracting to me from what could be some really good drama, almost to the point where it feels like Taika's heart isn't really into it. And I can tell, but I can tell you that really shows here, because with this movie accomplishing all of its wide range of tones, from disturbance to hilarity to slapstick to absolute dread to depression to just straight up sadness, like, and nailing all of that and having it like still hit all the beats that it needs to, even for a satire. Like, it's still like trust me, when he's a goof, but when he becomes Hitler, he becomes Hitler, and like in terms of serving his purpose, and like the Gestapo, even as goofy as they are straight up terrifying. Like, you still feel moral peril. But what I like about that movie most of all is that it never stops reminding you that it's from a kid's perspective. And at the end of the day, it's about a kid growing up in a certain type of environment, being brought up a certain type of way in a very brainwashed, backwards society. Yeah. And I feel like it never loses track of that. And that's what carries me through the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it, but I agree.
All right, so let's recap over.
Oh my
our
god,
list.
I was about to say, holy shit, we made it to the end. So, well, first off, we gotta I was about to say, we didn't really actually technically pick 3. So, you did not watch Uncut Gems yet, right?
No, I did.
Oh, you did.
I
all right.
Awesome.
So, Uncut Gems is on for all of us.
Yeah.
All right.
It's still very fresh.
Sure.
I might look back or listen
I
back.
personally prefer Good Time, but I think Uncut Gems is it's something else.
Yeah, Uncut Gems is definitely something else. And then, so you have not seen Parasite,
no,
unfortunately. So that would be a tour for us. You have not seen Jojo Rabbit, correct?
No.
Ooh, so
yeah. See, this year's tougher. What about
this
Irishman?
year? Definitely is tougher. Yeah, that's a problem.
Man.
I didn't have that in my top 5.
I'll put Irishman on there instead of Art of Self-Defense.
Okay. So let's put Irishman.
That's 2 for us. So then we can put Irishman.
So what do we want to do with Parasite and Jojo
I mean,
Rabbit?
we that's the problem, because we're missing one from each one, so we could split it and then see where it goes. Both gotta go.
For the chopping block.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
You know,
No, you're right.
All right. I think Parasite would make it very high on the list.
Yeah, I was about to say Parasite would be very
well,
high on the list.
I mean, you still have an override, Dom.
I do. That is true. You know what? Fuck it. I'm using the override. I'm putting Parasite on the list. Screw it. I don't care.
Nice.
Putting it on the list. So Parasite, and then so we'll go Irishman for the third one.
And Uncut Gems.
Yeah. Well, we got Uncut Gems already.
All right. Cool.
All right. So this is what we got so far. If we're recapping the list, so this is
how many movies?
Again, this is a very long and confusing list. So
30.
yeah. So we got 2. So from 2010, we got Social Network and Inception that we decided on. 2011,
let's go down the list and then let's decide on each year.
All right.
Then
like
we'll have
one.
the
one per year.
So we are going to do the one per year.
2 per year.
Because like for 2010, I'd keep both of those.
Do we want to do like top 20 of the decade?
We could. I was thinking more so 15, because I didn't want to do that thing where it's like, oh, we have to put one on from each year.
No, I don't
in order to be fair. Like, I feel like,
but we can go down the list and take off the ones we're like, okay, but that's not going to make the top 15.
Right. Okay, yeah, that'll work. So 2010. So we got Social Network and Inception. Those are the 2 that we decided on. Do we want both of those are safe for that
I
list?
think they're both locks.
All right, got it. So we'll keep that one. 2011, we pretty much only settled on Drive. That was like the only one that we were like unanimous on.
Yeah, that was the only one that we were all in.
Yeah. So do we want to keep that or cut it?
We'll keep it for now, just to represent 2011.
Just to represent. Make sure that 2011 is not forgotten. All right. 2012, we got the 4 that we settled on. So Avengers, Silver Linings Playbook, Cabin in the Woods, and Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Did we all like Perks?
I loved Perks.
I love Perks. So
I would happily put Perks in the top 15.
I'd keep that personally. I mean, in terms of making it into the top 15, I don't know about Cabin in the Woods, and I also don't know about Avengers.
Really? So you Silver Linings Playbook for you over Avengers?
Oh yes, in terms of just best. Yeah, I would say. Right. I don't know though. I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I was about
do
to
you
say,
think they
right
have
now,
a
because
shot?
we don't have any other Marvel movies on there. So if we're gonna make the unanimous decision to cut Avengers, that means that the MCU gets no representation in the official Talking TV Best of the Decade.
Yeah, I mean, but we don't need to look at it like that. We're just talking about the best movies of the decade.
So
and I love Avengers. I do.
But
like
I don't think it's a better movie than like Perks Being a Wallflower.
But like, it's like, do we think it would make a top 15? I think Perks would. I don't think Cabin would, and Silver Linings Playbook maybe if one of us fights hard enough for it. Avengers, I don't know. I honestly don't think it.
Okay.
Because we got a lot of other ones that we're talking about in all those other years, you know?
Yeah. So
I think Avengers would get shut out.
Okay.
All right. So are we going to cut the other 3 and just keep Perks then?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's do it. So we are cutting.
It's got to be done.
Cabin in the Woods, Silver Linings Playbook, and the first Avengers are out, so we have just the perks of being a wallflower. So moving on to 2013, so we have our top 3 was selected were Wolf of Wall Street, Her, and Prisoners, and then we also included Place Beyond the Pines and Inside Llewyn Davis as honorable mentions.
I love all of those.
That's a tough one to pick from.
I think Prisoners and Wolf of Wall Street, we all
Yep.
agreed. Those are locks.
Yes.
The
those
other
are locked
3, I mean, damn.
Yeah.
Fuck.
I feel like it ultimately comes down. It's ultimately going to
It's
come down to
preference.
for like which AI movie do we want to go with that makes it Her Ex Machina.
Yeah, I mean,
Ex
Her.
Machina.
Yeah, I unfortunately, if I got to go vote for those, it's a tough one, but I got to go Ex Machina.
I love Her, and I love what was it? It was Inside Llewyn Davis.
Inside Llewyn
and then
Davis.
I love Place Beyond the Pines. I think Place Beyond the Pines kind of has like an issue with it where it falls apart by the end. So that's why I would say take it off best.
Yeah.
Okay.
Her, I just don't. Her, I think it's simple as there's just a lot of better movies. Inside Llewyn Davis, I fucking love
It's
it.
very
but
much unknown.
yeah, it's
and
I don't think it's like as
It's like a
memorable
fun.
to-
It's a fun movie to watch.
yeah, I mean, I personally I think it's fucking amazing, but I have no problem cutting all 3. Of
All
those.
right, so we're gonna cut Inside Llewyn Davis and Her. So Prisoners and Wolf of Wall Street are making it. All right, 2014. Oh boy. So we got our 4: Birdman, Nightcrawler, Whiplash, and Edge of Tomorrow.
Okay, so
That's like no one wants to touch that
okay.
one.
Whiplash, I think, is a set for me.
I think Whiplash is.
think that's a
I don't
lot.
want to cut any of those. That's the problem. But if I had to pick between Birdman and Whiplash,
Damn,
like
I don't know. I mean,
Birdman's my favorite from that year, but I
kind of want to keep Edge of Tomorrow to see if it would. I think it would make maybe 15 or something like number 15.
Number 15.
I think that's
Edge of
why
Tomorrow.
I'm thinking. I don't know.
But we can all we're all pretty dead set Nightcrawler staying on, right? Okay, good.
Sure. I don't think it's gonna be high on the list.
Oh,
though.
really?
I think it's at least like a 11 or 12.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I
I think that's,
it
like,
could
pretty
be
decently
around
high.
there. Yeah, okay. So yes, it's just me agreeing with you guys. I personally, if it was like my personal list, I wouldn't have Nightcrawler or Birdman on there.
Right.
But
Whiplash,
I'll
I think,
keep-
is also
Whiplash,
locked.
we can
Whiplash,
agree.
I'll keep on, and I can respect the artistry of the other films to say, yeah, they should stay on.
So we're keeping Whiplash and Nightcrawler. We're getting rid of Birdman and Edge of Tomorrow.
Sure.
Got
Oh, bye Birdman.
Bye,
I
Bird-
also
bye,
like
bye,
Birdman.
Oh man, I love Birdman. I
Yeah.
love that movie so much. I this is just me. Sean Penn's joke that he made before he announced it aside. What's it?
I
Which
remember
again?
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
sure.
remember that too. That is like I was so beyond happy when that movie won Best Picture. All right, 2015. So we got Ex Machina, Mad Max, Fury Road, and Sicario. If I'm being
those are the 3.
those are the 3 that we
I would
decided
take out
on.
Sicario.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, like yeah, we gotta go with
Let's
Sicario.
keep just Ex Machina
Yeah.
or
Mad
Mad
Max.
Max.
All right, so kicking out Sicario, so Ex Machina and Mad Max.
Okay, now we're going to 2016.
2016, oh boy, here we go. La La Land, Moonlight, and Sing Street. You guys all know what my vote will be to cut one, but
I think Sing Street's a definite.
yeah, I definitely think we got to put Sing Street on there.
Well, yeah, Adam hasn't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
Oh,
But I mean, you
I
also
was about to say
agree
you can
with La La
use
Land?
your well. Oh, that's right. You use your
I
one
already-
punt for
yeah.
Blade Runner.
And he used it for
I
He used it for
But
I, Tonya, and I
Tonya
used
is not
it,
gonna-
and I used it for Parasite. And I, Tonya's probably not even gonna make it.
Could I like switch? Could I say, okay, let's drop
You can't
I,
switch. That's not how
Tonya?
that works. You can't like backtrack like that.
Fine. Yeah, I think Sing Street belongs on the list. I'm fine cutting the other 2, unfortunately.
Really, no Moonlight or La La Land.
Honestly, in terms of like top 10,
I feel like
Because
you
fighting
also
it out of
br-
the Oscars, they may have trashed
you
each other's
brought up how
choices.
La La Land was the one that kind of
It is.
It's the one that
It
that
is.
that brought together critics and the common like
yeah,
movie
I mean,
fans.
Very,
there's
very few
always
movies
one.
do.
Get Out was
Yeah.
it for the year following. I mean, personally, I would cut Moonlight. That just
yeah,
be me.
I would cut Moonlight.
I mean, again, I think you guys are bugging for cutting Moonlight from any sort of best overall list.
I think
but
it's weird
I already
with-
made my
yeah.
opinion clear there.
All right, so what are we doing here? We're in a
Alright,
sticky
yeah,
wicket.
this is tricky. This is really tricky.
Because I mean, if I wish Adam saw Sing Street, because
I haven't
then
seen
Right.
it.
because then we'd be like, yeah, that's a definite. But because he didn't, it's like, should we even
We might
include it? It's
have
not
to.
even.
We might have to.
But if we're cutting Sing Street, then I think we should just cut fucking all 3 of them.
No, nothing. Fuck 2016.
Because
Nothing
we
that
we're
one.
we're not in agreement on Moonlight and we're not in agreement on La La
Honestly,
Land, and
yeah, we
because
might
of
have
that,
to do
maybe
that.
they should just cancel each other out and we'll move on.
I thought we were all in agreement on La La
I was
Land.
about
No,
to
he
say,
doesn't like
I
La
don't
La
like
Land.
it. I'm not a fan
yeah,
of La
you
La
don't like
Land.
So so Dom doesn't like La La Land, and then
So that
Adam and I aren't
means
crazy about Moonlight.
Nocturnal
Animals. Yes, I'd be down for that.
Although Adam and I are both in agreement on Moonlight, so it's like a 1v2.
Wait, do we all
whereas
agree on
1v2,
Nocturnal
V2,
Animals?
Incredibles.
be one. I'd be down for putting Nocturnal for just
No,
last minute
it's
swapping
too late in the
Wild
game.
Card.
No,
Wild card. Wild
no.
card choice.
I would say, I don't know. I think we should cut Moonlight, and then I don't know, because La La Land, Adam and I both agree with it.
Yeah.
But then Sing Street, you and I both agree
Right,
with it.
it's I'm down to go with the original choice and just slash all three, even though I think that's a crime against humanity.
What number are we sitting at right now?
For amount of movies that we have
That are like locked
10.
in.
We have 10 movies right now that are locked in.
Keep both of those.
Moonlight and
Keep all three?
Sing Street?
No. Keep La La Land and Sing Street.
Yeah, let's cut Moonlight.
Fine.
I think it's awesome. I
think you
it's
guys
a great
are
movie,
insane, but
yeah, we gotta
whatever.
move on. 2017.
2017. So we got your one honorable mention, I, Tanya, and then our three are Logan, Get Out, and Blade Runner. That's another.
Well,
like,
Tanya's not
really
gonna
freaking
make it.
tough
Unfortunately, I love it. I think it's one.
That's-
It'd be in my top 10, but okay.
that's, like,
so we'll
ridiculous.
do. It's Logan. I think Get Out's a lock. Blade Runner, I could cut.
Well, I could see Blade Runner getting cut. Like as much as I love that movie,
I love it, and I used my override for it. I just want it to be clear that I love that movie before it gets chopped.
Me too. With
Before it gets
chopped.
beheaded.
I would say Logan, Get Out.
So Logan and Get Out. All right, so
Easy.
those two.
2018.
2018. So we got another three. We got Annihilation, Black Klansman, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So Into the Spider-Verse, I think, is a lock. That's no question.
I think we might.
Aren't we on 14 right now?
I think so. Yeah.
I don't see Black Klansman or Annihilation making the top 10.
Yeah.
So.
That's why I'd say
love
knock both of
them.
those out.
Fuck,
Yeah,
I
but I'd
love
say
them,
knock
but-
both those out.
Yeah, I think Spider-Verse is kind of the only like truly like defining one from that year.
If you think about it. And then 2019. So right now, what's it called? Before we get to 2019, so just to give you how many movies in one movie. So we have Social Network, Inception, Drive, Perks of Being a Wallflower, Wolf of Wall Street, Prisoners, Nightcrawler, Whiplash, Mad Max Fury Road, Ex Machina, La La Land, Sing Street, Logan, Get Out, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
That's 15.
That's 15 right there.
Yeah.
So
What's 2019?
So 2019, we have Uncut Gems, Parasite, which I use my pun on, and The Irishman.
I would say Uncut Gems doesn't have a shot.
Yeah, I think that one especially, it's too
say-
new.
Yeah,
I would say The Irishman is probably the strongest contender.
All right.
Yeah,
got
I would
it.
say Irishman, and then
I haven't
Tricky
seen
because you haven't seen Parasite, so I feel like by default that locks
I
out
know.
Parasite.
I mean, because we already did it for the Sing Street.
Yeah.
Which sucks because if this is just like my
Or we could
personal list,
knock out La La Land and put in Parasite.
I mean, I would
I don't
personally
know.
do that, but he hasn't seen it.
Yeah.
Damn it. Worth a shot. All right, screw it. So
It
looks
kills
like,
me because if this was like my personal top 5 of the
right,
decade,
that's the
it'd
whole
be
thing.
Parasite.
And now you guys
it'd be-
understand the struggle that I had, where it's like why I couldn't
All right,
just
okay,
do it because
before we
be
kill
it.
Parasite, let me just say it's the best movie of this year, maybe the best of the decade, and Sing Street is in my top 10 movies ever.
Wow.
And I'm cutting them.
Oh man! All right, so Parasite and Uncut Gems are going.
Just
We're
keep
sacrificing.
Irishman. So that means we have 16.
So that means we have 16. So which one is gonna make?
Let's go down the list
All
again
right,
and
so we
decide
got
who's
one.
gonna get who's getting executed from the top
got-
15 list.
we need
Social Network,
a volunteer.
Inception, Drive, Perks of Being a Wallflower, The Wolf of Wall Street, Prisoners, Nightcrawler, Whiplash, Mad Max Fury Road, Ex Machina, La La Land, Sing Street, Logan, Get Out, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and The Irishman.
Wait, we cut Sing Street and La La Land, I thought.
No,
we said
those
we were
made
keeping
it
both
on.
of those.
Oh, those made it out.
We said we were
Yeah.
keeping both of those.
Oh,
we literally just had this discussion like not even 2 minutes ago.
Okay, well, the ones that I heard that I would cut would be Nightcrawler and Drive. What were the ones you said after La La Land? Because I
After
stopped
La La Land.
listening.
Really good.
Logan, Get Out, Into the Spider-Verse, and The Irishman.
Okay, so there's 3 movies that I think I could cut: Drive, Nightcrawler, and Spider-Verse.
All right, so-
I would cut one of them.
Okay, so-
probably Nightcrawler.
Oh man,
That's
the
just
thing.
me.
If I have to put down my pundit right now, as much as I love Drive, and I think Drive is one of the best of the decade, if I had to use my pundit, I would say Nightcrawler and Into the Spider-Verse over both of those two. But that's just me.
Man, this is hard.
Yeah, this was not going to be easy.
Can you read the list again?
All right, so from the top, what's more? The
Just
Social
slow,
Network,
yeah.
Inception, Drive, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, The Wolf of Wall Street, Prisoners, Nightcrawler, Whiplash, Mad Max Fury Road, Ex Machina, La La Land, Sing Street, Logan, Get Out, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and The Irishman.
Yeah.
As much as I love Logan, I'm just saying, comparatively between the 2 superhero movies on there, I feel like Spider-Verse is a more. I don't know,
man.
As much as I,
But then you're kind of like putting a peg in your own argument because you said that
sacrilege.
Logan is like kind of not what a traditional superhero movie is.
Yeah, but it's like it's hard because I'm trying to be fair. Because I would obviously cut Sing Street because I haven't seen it, but I'm trying to be impartial, and I'm like, looking
Should
at
we
the list.
cut? Let's just cut Sing Street.
Or I would cut like.
Well,
like
let's
Social
make it.
Network.
Let's make it the top 15
The
list of
top
movies
15.
we've all seen. Let's just
So
cut
then we
Sing
gotta
Street.
cut Sing Street.
Yeah,
Damn
let's do it.
All right,
Let's do it.
so we're gonna cut Sing Street over Drive.
All right, and now I'm gonna say what should be number 15 is Nightcrawler. I think that's the weakest.
Yeah,
of the
so
bunch.
if we're in the last phase, we are in the rearrangement
Yeah.
phase. So we have, unfortunately, R.I.P. cut Sing Street. So now we are in going to officially arrange
Okay.
the top 15
Yeah.
of the decade.
I'm gonna say the weakest is Nightcrawler because I don't think it stands just amongst these titans of movies that belong in like the Mount Rushmore of the decade. I think Nightcrawler has a terrific lead performance.
It's an indie darling.
Yes, and I think there's parts of it that are good. I don't think it's very rewatchable. I don't think it.
And I could not disagree with you more on all those points. I think it's one of the most relevant movies. I think it's kind of continuing on what the Social Network set up in terms of like where we would go in this media-driven age, continuing bouncing off of what Whiplash and both Black Swan were doing in terms of what it'll do to go ahead, and also making you not sympathize but empathize with a sociopath.
I didn't
Yeah.
think it was that. I mean, okay, in terms of relevancy, yes, it was about video and news, but it didn't feel like a 2010. Like this is going on today. It felt like a period piece about like the early 2000s.
Really?
Really?
Me,
I didn't get that vibe at all.
I did not think Nightcrawler really belonged in this list at all, but I think it's a very good film. I just don't think it stacks up against all those other ones. I really don't. I think I think at the very least it does not belong in the top 10. I think number 15, 14, 13.
I'll give it 15
All right.
for right now.
If that's the case, then I am outvoted.
Yeah, but like,
all right.
how are we doing this though? In terms of like, are we just gonna take movies
Yeah,
and start stacking?
Pretty
them?
much, yeah. That's what we got to do.
We're gonna count down and like it'll become obvious. Like, oh, what's the number one of
Right.
like the decade?
Okay.
Kinda.
Yeah, which, if you want to just knock it out of the way right now, I think number one should be Social Network, but that's just me. Like, just in terms of, like, because I feel like Social Network did for this decade what no other movie did, which is both setting up for what this decade would be, while also kind of, you can still watch that movie and kind of see all the starting points of what would happen with trajectory of both movies and society, and while also at the same time kind of being its own really great time capsule. Like, I think of the 2010s and I think of the Social
Network.
Network.
In the top 10, even
would-
top 5.
I would do that.
I would
yeah.
make like maybe 4.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a good way to do it. We should decide what's going to be
Top
the bottom
5,
bottom
yeah.
5, and then like whatever
The last
5 are
and then
left or the
rearrange
middle.
Okay.
All
so
right.
that's a bottom 5
I think
top 5 contender.
Yeah. Okay, we're doing the top. Let's do
Yeah.
the bottom first.
Yeah, let's do bottom first.
Okay.
and then
Bottom
we'll get
I
to
would
that.
I would put Nightcrawler, and then I think we're all kind of thinking Drive down there too.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like I said, I'd budge with I would budge with Drive and
Yeah.
put that in.
I would say
the bottom
Nightcrawler,
five. All right.
Drive,
Drive
and then-
can be like honestly, I would say like 12 or 14.
Yeah.
Like
So
12
what
or
do we?
13,
What are
14.
3 other movies from that list that wouldn't be in the top 10?
For me, La La Land.
yeah, I'll agree with you.
All right,
I'll agree
sweet.
with you.
I actually finally got somebody who agree with me on
I
La
would
La
say
Land.
it's like number 11.
Yeah, I'd
I
say.
would say, yeah.
So well, let's rank the bottom 5. I would say currently
Well,
we
we
got
need 2
La
more.
La
We
Land.
got La La Land, Drive, and Nightcrawler, so we need 2 more
I'd
for the
ra-
bottom 5.
I would say.
What are the other ones?
I was
That
about
we
to see if you
haven't-
really want me to read off that list more?
That we haven't.
Social Network, Inception, Perks, Wolf of Wall Street, Prisoners, Whiplash, Mad Max, Ex Machina, Logan, Get Out, Into the
Oh.
Spider-Verse, The Irishman.
Honestly, I'd put Mad Max in the bottom 5.
Really? Okay.
And then I would. You guys are gonna hate me. I'd put Ex Machina.
Nah,
there.
No.
that's making it
All right.
at
No
least
way, I'm not budging on that
top
one.
10.
Yeah, that's
All
at
right,
least the
fine.
middle
Then
ground.
I would say,
I've
okay.
unfortunately moved on Moonlight. I refuse to move on Ex
All right,
Machina.
so I'll say, I'd say I'd put Mad Max. Honestly, I'd put Mad Max and Spider-Verse in the bottom 5. I love
I agree.
Spider-Verse.
I could see Spider-Verse.
I love
For me
it.
personally, I would put Spider-Verse at 11, but I could definitely see how Spider-Verse would
I
go
put
in
it at
bottom
12.
5.
I put
Okay,
it.
You
so
put it at
that's
12?
in the bottom.
Yeah.
What about Mad Max in the bottom?
I'd put that at 13.
13. Okay,
So we have
the 5.
Yeah.
I would say number 15,
Nightcrawler, then Drive at 14.
Drive 14. 13, you were thinking Mad Max,
Yeah.
Fury Road. 12, you were thinking
Spider-Verse.
Spider-Verse. 11, La La Land.
I think that's
Perfect.
solid for the
All right.
bottom.
We're moving through this machine.
Hey, kind of like the last backwards. So, in that case, so we have our so that's our bottom 5. Now we have our next 5, which is our 10 through 6.
So like the ones that we don't think are the top 5.
Yeah, so I'm just going to put it right now. I think Irishman should be a 10. I think that's a good spot for it in terms of like kind of bookending the decade.
Maybe 9.
Which one would you have below it?
I want to
Below Irishman.
below Irishman. Maybe Get Out.
You would say Get Out?
I would, if we're talking like not the top 5, I would say Get Out, and I would maybe say Inception.
I think Get Out is top 5. I think
you
number
do?
5 is like a perfect spot for Get Out. Yeah.
What are we thinking?
I would say Inception would be probably more so bottom 5 than top 5.
I could see it sitting at 6.
Yeah, I could see it. Like, yeah.
Because like it wasn't really a big one for like common like moviegoers or like the average audience.
We're talking Inception or Get Out?
Inception. I think a lot more.
Oh, that's right. I thought it was a box office hit.
It was a
huge box office hit.
It was, but a lot of people walked in and were like,
they didn't think it was as memorable as
right.
They walked out like that shit was stupid. Yeah. What, the top spins or it doesn't? Like,
of course, we have to degrade a movie to its memes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would I can't think of one that like definitively isn't in the top 5.
Right. It's tricky. If you want my opinion, I could
Logan.
say
I would put Logan in.
I would put Logan in there. So my
10.
personal bottom 5, I would say if we get Logan in, if we get Out and Ex Machina out of there, I would say bottom 5 for me: Irishman, Logan.
Wait, you guys want Ex Machina in the top 5?
Yes, I would say yes.
It would sit. I think either at 5 or like. 4.
I don't.
It's such an incredible, intelligent movie. For the budget that it had and what it made
that's something.
And how well written it is, every single line feels like it has a double or triple meaning to it, and it implies something that means something to the story. And then as more stuff unfolds, it just gets crazy and makes sense, and it's fantastic.
What Adam said, because he probably made that sound
very
more
good.
intelligent than I would have.
It's very good. I just don't know about top 5. I don't know. I can't. Okay, so we're thinking Logan would be in the bottom.
Logan, I think we can agree is bottom 5.
So that's
Are we putting that at 10? Because I think we can.
Well,
agree.
like for now.
I wouldn't be mad with Logan at 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's say Logan.
Logan, we can put at 10.
Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Perks of Being a Wallflower, I would say it was probably more so bottom 5 than anything
Yeah,
else.
because we all agreed on that one. I think that also.
I don't think it's
stands
top
out.
5.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah.
It stands out for what it is, but
Yeah.
it's also definitely a situation of we're like defining, you know?
Yeah.
So we would say Perks at 9, we're thinking?
Yeah.
I would put Logan above Perks, but for now, let's just keep
Okay.
him.
Like
So,
before it.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, let's just find the 5 that aren't in the top 5.
Yeah,
I would say
so we define Logan, Perks of Being a Wallflower, Irishman, and then what's it called?
I did not agree about the Irishman.
you did not agree
being
about
in the top
Irishman?
5.
Oh.
Fine, we'll do it for now. We'll
Okay.
keep it because
All
it
right.
is kind of new.
And then if
so
you
I'll
want
say
my
5.
other 2 picks for bottom 5, I would say Inception and either Wolf of Wall Street or Whiplash.
Whiplash has got to be
Whiplash?
in the top 5. What?
Top 5?
I think Whiplash has got to be at the top 5.
Okay.
I would be fine putting Inception below.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I'd be okay with that.
That's what I'm good
Okay,
with.
so
All right.
so we got Okay,
Yeah,
so
so-
Inception.
so that's
is
4.
1.
Yeah.
What? That's 4.
That's 4. Yeah, Logan,
I thought
Perks,
we got-
Irishman, and Inception. We need one more.
Oh, I thought we agreed on a 5th one already. So we got Inception, Perks, Logan, and Irishman. A 5th one. Get Out, number 6. Is
Yeah.
that
You think Get Out,
I
number
agree.
6? All right.
okay? So we're doing Get Out at 6.
I agree with that.
And then we're doing Inception at 7.
So our bottom that we have. So we have Get Out at 6, Inception at 7, The Irishman at 8, The Perks of Being a Wallflower at 9, and Logan at 10.
I would switch Logan and Perks of Being a Wallflower. That's just me.
You'd put Logan
At
before
9, and then Perks at 10. That's just me.
I don't know. I feel like that's.
If I'm overruled, that's fine. So Dom, whatever you think.
I think it's generous, but it's not like
I just-
unfair. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's a valid. I can see that. You're gonna make me the judge here.
Well, because if he says no and I'm yes, I think it's a better movie than Perks. Overrule what?
You know what? Well, let's do it. I'll do that. Yeah, that's. I'll
okay.
happily do that. Put that. I loved Logan.
I just think it's a better movie overall.
Then Perks.
So-
Yeah.
That leaves our top 5. So this is how we got to rank. So Social Network, Wolf of Wall Street, Prisoners, Whiplash, and Ex Machina. Me personally,
Prisoners is still in there?
Prisoners made it to top 5.
yes.
You're welcome.
Prisoners.
You're
I feel
welcome.
Like Prisoners. Let's do like 5.
Yeah, that's
Like-
what I'll say.
Because I think
the victory is that it got
into the top 5.
because I totally forgot it was still in the
Yeah.
competition.
Well, we all agree it's fantastic.
That's
spellbound.
like Sing Street. That's a top 10 movie of all time for
Yeah,
me. So
I
I'm
definitely
happy.
think it didn't get enough praise when it first
Yeah,
came
so
out.
I'd say Prisoners of 5. I would personally say I've let this Ex Machina train run long enough. I think it stops at 4.
Okay. I you know what? I'll be willing to give you that.
I'll put it at 3.
You would put it at
For
3?
now.
That's the thing. I'd put Whiplash at 3. I might have to put Whiplash at 3 and not budge. I love Whiplash.
Wait, but we still have Wolf of Wall Street?
I keep Wolf of Wall Street at 2.
I think Wolf of Wall Street's
I think for me,
No,
Wolf of
I
Wall
put it at,
Wolf of Wall
5.
Street is a number 2. I feel like
Really?
Wolf of Wall Street is a number 2 and
Damn.
Social Network
Wait,
is a
but we
number
think
1.
Wolf of Wall Street is a better movie than The Irishman?
Yes.
Yeah.
We already agreed on that.
Really?
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think
yeah.
Irishman's
I think
better,
it's way
but-
more consistent than The Irishman. I love The Irishman, but I think in Wolf of Wall Street, you have to admire that movie's consistency chops.
Okay, personally, honestly, out of those 5, I mean, I would personally say the 4 and 5 are Ex Machina and Wolf.
I would say Ex Machina makes it down in the top 3. Like,
Damn, no!
Oh, what's
because the other one we're left with is like we're left with Social Network.
Yep.
And
Whiplash.
Whiplash.
I think those.
So I feel
are
like
a
that's
good
not
2.
unfair.
I think
feel like
I think those 2 are a good 2. What about Prisoners at number 4? Is there something we could put at number 5?
didn't we say Prisoners?
We said
at
Prisoners
5?
is 5.
Yeah,
We
but is
said
there
that.
some? Personally, I would put Wolf of Wall Street and Ex Machina below Prisoners.
For me, it comes down to the ending. I don't think Prisoners ending is very good.
I fucking.
That movie to me is almost perfect until the
then
ending.
Let's do Prisoners at 5.
Okay.
Ex Machina at 4.
Okay.
I can live with that.
Whiplash at 3.
Okay. Which leaves Wolf of Wall
Which
Street at 2.
between- yeah.
Wolf of Wall Street and Social Network. You already know my thought process on that.
I think 5 and 4. I like Prisoners at 5. I like Machina at 4, even though I don't agree. But I think Whiplash is better than Wolf of Wall Street.
You think Whiplash is better than Wolf of Wall Street?
That's me.
I honestly, I'm
Amateur outing versus like master at his work right here. That's what
trying
it
to
comes
think
down
of
to.
how Social Network got to number 1. Because in my opinion, I wouldn't have it at number 1 for
Okay.
best of the decade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if I were to go back and watch it now and then like compare it, because they're so different. I think it's so different to all the other movies. On the
Right, but
list.
that's
They're
what
all
I love
very
about it. See,
different.
I rewatched
You know
that
what?
movie the other night, and I'm
thinking
like,
about
that
it
movie
now.
has a
I'm
rewatchability.
thinking about it now. I'll keep Whiplash at 3 because once he just said the amateur versus master, I was like, yeah, because Wolf of Wall Street is just it's firing on all cylinders the whole time. Whereas Whiplash, it's fucking amazing, but it's like it's his start, and you can watch it. You're just kind of like, all right.
In my opinion, he never topped it. But
Wolf is at number 2.
so
and
Wolf
then-
is at 2, and then Social Network. We kind of have to. We
Yeah,
got
that
it.
I mean,
I'll
I'll agree.
go with it, yeah.
I want to go back and watch it, but like
I think it's incredible.
Yeah.
It's so
I think
good.
it's Fincher's best film.
Really,
period.
I am a jury's still out on that one because I still have to see a majority of his big ones. But
Well, I mean, like if you're looking at him, like Fight Club's very good, Seven's great,
Uh-huh.
Gone Girl's very good, Zodiac's great, but like I just think The Social Network is his most consistent because with all those other movies, there's always like one thing where you're like, Zodiac didn't really have an ending, and like Fight Club and something like that. There's always something.
Yeah.
Whereas The Social Network is just like this perfect kind of
definitely
biopic.
again, it's like him and
weird.
Sorkin. Like those two are a dynamic power. So that's what we're settled on.
Yep.
All right. So without further ado, people, we did it.
Countdown
It was
from
long and
15.
deliberate. Counting down from 15. These are, according to the Talking TV, the movie nerd Adam and Brandon's official 15 best movies of the decade, and no Marvel movies. Oh, guess those don't qualify as cinema. Chris is cheering somewhere out there. All right. Number 15, Nightcrawler. Number 14, Drive. Number 13, Mad Max Fury Road. Number 12, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Number 11, La La Land. Number 10, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Number 9, Logan. Number 8, The Irishman. Number 7, Inception. Number 6, Get Out. Number 5, Prisoners. Number 4, Ex Machina. Number 3, Whiplash. Number 2, The Wolf of Wall Street. And number 1, the unequivocal best movie of the decade, the motherfucking Social Network. Guys, this has been awesome. I'm
happy with
I'm
that
so
list.
happy that I managed to pull you guys down.
yeah.
Oh man, this was
I am happy with the list, but there are still some movies that we mentioned that I think are better than the bottom 5 of the top
Moonlight.
15.
Yeah,
But,
like I think if we all saw like Parasite, Sing Street, I think there's a couple that I didn't see.
it's definitely tricky,
Yeah.
especially like given how this was the last year of the decade. But guys, I wanted to thank you guys both for coming down, for getting this season, this year, this
No
decade
problemo.
off to a banging start. Oh man, I can already smell that 2020 vision is going to be like.
Wait, let's ask
absolutely
Chris
insane.
what he thought of the list.
Oh yeah, Chris,
Get
what
a
did you
mic.
think of the list?
He's gone, walking in the mic.
Basically, I hadn't met these two guys before today, but the fact that they didn't allow a single Marvel film to go on that list means that I trust them unequivocally with my life.
Even though they talked positively about Marvel.
That's what I think.
Even though they talk positively
Well, technically,
about it.
Logan is a Marvel movie.
It is a Marvel movie, just not
But
MCU
it's
specifically.
different.
So, guys, without further ado, if we're going to wrap this up, social media platforms, where can people find you and your incoming escapades that will commence this new decade?
I got my Snapchat is BFAL123. My Instagram is Brandon_Fallat. FALLAT.
Brandon, you have been amazing. Thank you for coming here.
No problem at
Adam,
all.
where can people find you?
I occasionally post. I'm not a big social media person, but if you want to see some of the stuff that
me neither. I
have,
just wanted to tell
Yeah.
my thing.
It's for Instagram. It's at Adam Somer Films _ in between the words. I don't think you need to type that in to find me.
You would be surprised.
But that's like my professional portfolio page of like still shots of things I've shot. So.
Definitely. Both of these guys have got a future in this industry, without a doubt. And they will most definitely be back on future episodes of At Talkin'
that'd be
TV.
fun, man.
So, Chris, if we're going to give this whole thing the wrap-up that it deserves, I just wanted to say, guys, thank you all for listening. Once again, thank you for constantly tuning in to this. Thank you for giving us the chance to finally fulfill a dream of ours that we've been trying to do for a very long time, because that's what this business is about. This is the business of making dreams come true. And you guys can follow us on the Talkin' the TV, the podcast, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Spotify, on Anchor, anywhere, on Apple Music,
On Crackle.
anywhere that you can listen to podcasts. I was about to say
Crackle.
Crackle. Is that a thing? I saw one thing for a show there with Nick Nolte like 3 years ago, and then I never saw or heard anything else from that. So, Chris, if you wanted to just let us sign off before we head out. Oh, thank you. And guys, with that much being said, we wanted to thank you guys for coming in. And of course, as per usual, watch more fucking movies. We'll see you guys in this new decade.